Terry Flynn,
Here.
Counselor Henry F. Lombardi Jr.,
Here.
Counselor M. Teresa Santos,
Here.
Counselor Dennis B. Toronto,
Here.
Counselor Barbara A. Von Villis.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Colleagues and people that called in, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
Under God,
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 indivisible, with
liberty, and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Good.
Short announcement, just if we have any new caller-ins. If you're participating by phone and wish to speak, *9 on your phone. If you're on the Zoom application and wish to speak, just raise your hand. In regards to discussion, each council will have 5 minutes and then another 3 minutes after discussion. Then we will vote. We have a lot on the docket tonight, and we have a couple items that are going to be lengthy discussions. So
Mr. President,
asking that we don't.
What's happening?
something, yeah,
No,
Ourselves, make your statement unless,
something's wrong.
Yeah, the voice level.
Sounds like you're singing.
Bob, you're breaking up.
I'm not even talking right. How about when I'm talking now? How is it?
So we can hear you now, Bob, but you broke up.
Yeah.
You probably need to repeat what you said. You were breaking up, you couldn't hear you.
Okay, all right. If you're participating by phone and wish to speak, you have to hit *9. If you are on the Zoom application and wish to speak, just simply raise your hand. In regards to discussions tonight, each council will have 5 minutes and then another 3 minutes after discussion as a follow-up. Then the council will take a vote. I gave a lot of latitude at the last meeting, a lot of time with councilors. We have a lot on the docket tonight. I'm going to try to accommodate our clerks. If we have to go to 10:30, we're going to go to 10:30 by the council rules. They have to be back here at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I'm going to try to help them out. If we can get through this earlier tonight, we'll help them out and we'll get done faster. However, if not, I don't want to rush through any council business either. So if we're here at 10:30, we're here at 10:30.
Mr. President,
Council Santos.
I'd like to make a recommendation that any council person be limited on each item to 2 questions per item.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President. This is if it's an item for discussion and the question doesn't get answered in the discussion of 7 and residents, there should be no limit to questions
From the council?
from anybody.
I
We're
think
trying to make a good I'm
All
sorry.
right, let's try to run this meeting, okay? Council Flynn, I got the center seat. Let me run the meeting. You hold your hand up when you want to talk, okay? I think we ought to just try to be conscious of the time, but I don't want to skip through anything that's important. We have a lot of important items on the docket, and if it requires more, so I'm really not in favor of that, Council Santos.
All right, fine.
Some people may have more questions, but
Yes, as usual.
if people want to limit it to 2, if that's a motion from you, then we'll entertain it.
Just drop it, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All set?
All set, Vice President.
Okay. Motion to act as a Board of License Commission.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion second to act as a board of license. I'll be polling the council. Council Von Villis,
Aye.
Council Toronto,
Aye.
Council Santos,
aye.
Council Lombardi,
Aye.
Council Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President.
Approve.
I am voting in the affirmative as well. Item number 1, Board of License Commission. Application of Rock Lobster 69 LLC, DBA Rock Lobster 59 Aquinic Avenue for a Class BV liquor license to be used at the same premise. Application includes requests for outside service on the lower patio area and the upper deck. On May 18, 2020, this item was ordered, advertised, and notification to abutters for public hearing on June 1, 2020. Due to the newspaper notice, the application requires a continuance for advertising and notification to the abutters for hearing on June 15, 2020.
Motion to continue to June 15, 2020 to notify abutters and advertise for public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council Von Villas,
Aye.
Council Toronto,
Aye.
Council Santos,
Aye.
Council Lombardi,
Aye.
Council Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President,
Approve.
and I also vote in the affirmative. Okay, thank you. So we're gonna make sure that's out now. Madam Clerk, thank you. Okay, item number 2. Applications of the following named persons, firms, or corporations for temporary expansion of outside service of alcohol. Class B Limited, Mission LLC, 58 Aquinic Avenue. Class B Victual, AQ Inc., Aquinic Restaurant and Pizzeria, 27 Aquinic Avenue. Back of the Bus LLC, Ida's Restaurant, 21A Valley Road. LLC, Budage Boconon, 36 Aquinic Avenue. Diego's Middletown, 116 Aquinic Ave. HPK, Tickets, 15 Aquinic Avenue. The Pub at 2 Mile Corner, Inc. The Pub at 2 Mile Corner, 10 Maple Avenue.
Motion to grant temporary expansion of alcohol for outside service. Second.
We have a second. Any conversation?
Yes. Are we opening
Wait a
Pandora's
minute.
box?
Let me just acknowledge you first. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Council Santos.
Are we opening Pandora's box? We do have an ordinance on the books that prohibits drinking in public. Are we changing the ordinance?
Council Santos, this is in line with the governor's order.
All right.
That's valid point, good point, but there won't be an issue.
All right. My next.
It's not going to be permanent on top of that. So.
Okay.
all
My
right.
next.
Well,
My
okay,
next
go ahead.
question
Go ahead.
is that they drink outside, but they cannot carry their drink along the sidewalk like they did in Newport.
No, they're at the tables. They're at the table.
They're at the table while they're eating. All
Yes.
right. Okay.
Council Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am in support of helping these businesses as much as we can. I appreciate this movement here. My question is what's the time frame? Is this something that's permanent, or is this for a month, is 2 months, or is that to be determined?
No, during the state of emergency, I thought I just said that. During the state of emergency, it's just a temporary order.
Okay, thank you.
Council Flynn.
So, excuse me, the maps that we did receive in our emails were a little hard to decipher. I wasn't sure if we were really supposed to. So I just wanted to ask if Middletown is liable or responsible for checking compliance, or is that going to be the DBR? What is our responsibility, our role?
We check the compliance. We
Oh.
maintain the compliance.
So I assume that the maps have gone through whatever department head is going to be looking at that knows what the current state of emergency rules are, and all those maps have been stamped approved.
Yes, the building official.
Okay, thank
Along
you.
with the town administrator signed off on him, because he still is under the state of emergency. He still has the authority under the state of emergency. Vice
Thank
President?
you.
No, my questions were, I had similar questions to what Teresa and Dennis and Terry had. So
Okay.
they're answered.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Counselor Von Villas,
Aye.
Counselor Toronto,
Aye.
Counselor Santos,
Aye.
Counselor Lombardi,
Aye.
Counselor Flynn,
Aye.
Counselor Vice President Rodrick,
Aye.
and I vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you.
Motion to reconvene as town council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second to reconvene as the town council. Counselor Von Villas,
Aye.
Counselor Toronto,
Aye.
Counselor Santos,
Aye.
Counselor Lombardi,
Aye.
Counselor Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President Rodrick,
Aye.
and I vote in the affirmative. Okay, consent.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the consent calendar. Counselor Von Villas,
Aye.
Counselor Toronto,
Aye.
Counselor Santos,
Aye.
Counselor Lombardi,
Aye.
Counselor Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President,
Aye.
and I vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you. Licenses continued from March 16th, 2020, regular meeting. Application for a special event permit from the Newport County YMCA for the summer camp water sports surf camp to be held at Second Beach beginning June 22nd, 2020 to August 28th, 2020 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Motion to grant said special event permit.
Second.
You have a motion second. Any conversation? Councilor Flynn.
Just a quick question. The application's dated February 19th, and they included a lot of their procedures, I assume from back then. I didn't see a whole lot of COVID-19 specific procedures. Are they going to apply? And once again, does Middletown have to check that compliance? Do they have to be on these applications as part of the application? Do we have liability?
I don't think we have to have it on the application, but they'll be held to be in compliance, yes.
Are we checking that?
We do that.
We do that.
We do that.
Okay. And is there going to be a lifeguard that we have to provide or required on Third Beach for this?
Well, I think in the past, I don't think we had to provide a lifeguard. I think we had one there during those hours, and that'll be part of our later conversation tonight.
Okay, so if we approve it with the knowledge that we don't have in place lifeguards, is that an issue?
Then we'll let them know if that happens.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and the last question was about, I assume that it's just going to be one bus going to Third Beach with the campers and staff. So there shouldn't be a parking issue, but the social distancing numbers might be impacted. And I just wanted to bring that up to make sure everyone was aware.
And once again, we hold them in compliance, yes. Okay,
Okay, thank
any
you.
other questions?
Mr. President,
Council Lombardi?
just to be clear, this is Second Beach, correct? This is the YMCA permit?
Yes,
It says
Yes.
to be held at Second Beach.
yes.
Same questions. At either beach, considerations should be,
Well,
need to
I
be
know,
taken.
you said Third Beach. I want to
I
make sure
did.
we're right.
Thank you.
All set, thank you.
Mr. Brown?
The YMCA provides their own lifeguard. That's a requirement for the program.
Okay, any further questions?
Mr. President,
Councilor
On that-
Santos?
on that special event permit, on the second part, you'll notice that most of the people on there who are providing the staffing are all either CPA or lifeguards. There are 3 lifeguards listed, so they'll have their own lifeguards on board.
Yes, they are. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Any further conversation? Okay, we have a motion, and it's been seconded. Council Von Villas,
Aye.
Council Toronto,
Aye.
Council Santos,
Aye.
Council Lombardi,
Aye.
Counselor Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President,
Aye.
and I voted in the affirmative as well. Thank you. Item number 5. Continued from March 16, 2020, regular meeting. Application for special event permit for Shelley Dugan of the Sacred Center at St. Mary's Church for yoga on the beach to be held at Third Beach, Monday to Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., mid-June to early September.
Motion to grant said special event permit.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any conversation? Vice President.
So, I mean, I have no issue with it, besides, how are they gonna determine, you know, if it's right now, it's resident only? How are they gonna determine, because they're gonna be there from 7:30 to 8:30, and the, you know, what time we open over there now, I think is 8, right? So how are they gonna determine whether they're there for the class or not?
My suggestion would be, Mr. Brown, depending on what happens later this evening with the conversations in regards to our beaches, that we make the appropriate notifications later.
And how do you know that they're leaving at 8:30?
Yeah,
Could be a
we,
non-resident, you know, and could be someone attending the class and just decide to stay. How do you know? You know, it could take a spot away from a resident, that's all.
A valid point. Mr. Brown, if this does get approved, maybe we can make a note, and who's ever working that down there, note the people that are there and note the removal of the people that are not residents.
correct. Miss Duggan's been down at the beach for a number of years.
Mhm.
We've worked well with her, so I don't anticipate a problem identifying a solution, so.
Yeah, the river is pretty good. Vice President,
We have someone that has their hand raised on, wants to talk. Karen, you have a name? Colleen. Colleen would like to talk about.
okay, Colleen, name and address, please.
Colleen Murphy, 5 Collins Terrace. Most of it was covered by Paul, but it is, if we have minimal spots there, maybe they can do a 7 to 8 and have to be out by 8, because I don't think there should be a spot taken from a resident.
No, that's a valid point. But I'm sure Mr. Brown will work that out. If they're not, we'll get the cars out of there.
Okay.
Any other comments, Colin?
Nope, good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Anyone else, Karen? No, okay.
All right, nobody else? Okay, we have a motion for a second. Councilor Von Villis,
Aye.
Councilor Toronto,
Aye.
Councilor Santos,
There she goes.
Councilor
She's unmuted.
Santos, Councilor Santos,
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi,
Aye.
Councilor Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President,
Aye.
and I vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you. Item number 6, application for the special event permit for Road Races and Events, Inc. for the Newport Road Races Marathon Road Race to be held on Saturday, April 17th, 2021, from 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on various roads in Middletown.
Motion to grant said special event permit.
Second.
Okay, a motion in a second. Any conversation? Councilor Flynn.
So this application is for about 10 months away, and I understand that they are submitting it so they can make their plans, get their advertising done. So if we approve the permit and just say that there are, issues with COVID-19, say that they continue, can we rescind that permit or that approval, or how would that work?
We would.
We would be able to do that?
Would be revoked. And yes, we
No.
can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Counselor Toronto?
Yes, I just want to mention, there was a road race that was supposed to be run this year. And it actually came back, a concerned resident had mentioned that it was then changed to a virtual race where people would go out and run on their own and so on. So it was a little bit of a hardship whether they're going to get the money back or they're not going to get their money back. And they had asked just to make that into consideration, when this came up again. So I just wanted to bring this up. I think that this company should look at if there is a cancellation, there should be some type of return policy for our residents. I just want to put that out there because there are some residents who paid, and because the company said they're going to do it virtual, there was no refund given. So just wanted to put that out there for consideration.
Okay. Mr. Solicitor, do you have a comment in regards to that?
I think it would be a potentially dangerous precedent for the town to insert.
I can't hear him.
I think it would be a potentially difficult precedent if the town were to insert itself in the contract between the event organizer and the participants. Most of these contracts have standard provisions in them. Just as the town may revoke the permit under certain circumstances, they may need to cancel the event after having spent money to prepare for it. So I would just suggest leaving that between the racers and the event organizers.
Any other comment? Okay, I'd be in agreement with that as well. That's why I asked the solicitor's opinion. I don't feel comfortable with us being involved in something like that. I understand your point, Councilor Toronto, and your concerns for our resident, but they know that going into it. I think for us to be involved in something like that would probably be an arena that we don't want to be involved in.
And the resident just asked me for just to make people aware of it. So
Okay.
Get it out there.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Any further conversation? Councilor Von Villas.
Aye.
Vice President, Vice President.
It just, I don't know, I mean, it just strikes me as odd that it's 10 months out. I mean, a lot happens in 10 months. I mean, I'll prove it. I don't know. It's just, maybe that's just me. I've never seen one approved 10 months out, apply 10 months out. Maybe they're very organized. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of logistics to be done with races like this. And I think there's a lot of planning and I think the first thing would be make sure they get the permit and then they can go from there. So I would assume that they'll advertise after that and move things along. That's my feel.
Okay.
Any other conversation? Okay. Been seconded. Councilor Von Villas?
Aye.
Councilor Toronto?
Aye.
Councilor Santos?
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi?
Aye.
Councilor Flynn?
Aye.
Vice President?
Approve.
And I approve as well. Thank you. Public hearing. Item number 7. Public hearing advertised. This is the first reading. The Town of Middletown application for PY 2019 application, Small Cities Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, for certain projects statewide, the amount of $5 million available to undertake a range of activities. A, improvement of housing opportunities for low and moderate income families and individuals. B, provisions of employment opportunities for low and moderate income individuals. C, provisions of community facilities and services principally benefiting low and moderate income families and individuals.
Okay, motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
There a motion and second to open the public hearing. Councilor Von Villas, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Toronto?
Aye.
Councilor Santos?
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi?
Aye.
Councilor Flynn?
Aye.
Vice President?
Aye.
And I vote as well in the affirmative. Is there anybody that would like to make any comments? Our planner, Ron, would you like to make any comments?
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Ron.
Ron Wolanski, Town Planner. I just wanted to point out that this is the first of 2 public hearings that the council will have regarding this year's CDBG application. As you know, each year we submit an application requesting funding for eligible projects within the town. We may be hearing from some prospective applicants tonight. This first hearing is intended to be an announcement of the program for this year. We'll have the second hearing on the 15th. And at that time, well, prior to that meeting in your docket, you'll have a list of the projects in the applications that we've received. We have, I think at this point, 2 proposed projects from local nonprofit service providers. And then the town might also wish to consider submitting a project of its own, which might be the Windows project at the senior center that we've requested funding for in the past.
Okay. Any councilors have any questions? Vice President.
Bob, we do have a caller, Sean Saunders.
Okay. Hi, Sean, name and address, please.
Hi, good evening, councilors. My name is Sean Saunders. I work with Church Community Housing. We administer the CDBG program on behalf of the town of Middletown. We're located at 50 Washington Square in Newport. My personal address is 37 West Narragansett Avenue in Newport. Yeah, I think Ron actually just had a great description of the program. As part of this initial public hearing, there are a few things that are required by HUD for us to address, and I'll be brief about these details, but just wanted to let the public know that the state of Rhode Island was awarded $5.4 million to benefit activities that are specifically benefiting low to moderate income individuals within the town of Middletown and the state of Rhode Island. What can be funded would be improving housing opportunities for low to moderate income families and individuals, employment opportunities for low and moderate income individuals, and provision of community facility and services, principally benefiting low and moderate individuals. Previously, the town of Middletown has used these funds to fund organizations such as Lucy's Hearth, who's planning on, I believe, applying again. And you know, they rely on these funds to provide the service that they do to Middletown residents. The estimated amount proposed to be used for activities this year from the interest that we've been given is 100% of these funds should go to low to moderate or presumed low to moderate income individuals. That would be projects that would benefit both elderly, disabled, or financially low to moderate income individuals. This shouldn't be an issue with the projects that are being proposed this year, but if there was any displacement of individuals for a project, that a plan would be put in place to make sure that that displacement is minimized as much as possible. As Ron said, we did get some interest already for proposals for this grant. We did hear from Lucy's Hearth. They'll be applying again this year. We also heard from Child and Family Services. They're looking to redo the playground at Sandpipers so that it can be ADA accessible, or Americans with Disability Act accessible, as well as Ron said that there was a town project that he might be better suited to speak on than I would. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay. Vice President.
We have another caller, Kelly Lee.
Kelly?
Yes, good evening,
Name and
Mr.
address,
President.
please.
My name is Kelly Lee, Executive Director of Lucy's Hearth, located at 19 Valley Road in Middletown. My home address is 3 Evergreen Court in Coventry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening on behalf of our intended application for program year 19 through CDBG funds in the town of Middletown. We've enjoyed funding for the past several years and would like to thank the council for that support, as well as Church Community Housing in putting that application together. And we also request consideration for support in program year 19 in the amount of $50,000 to support shelter operations, which directly benefits the low-income families that we serve each and every day at Lucy's Hearth.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to ask Ron or maybe Sean if the funds could be for something along, I'm under the education umbrella. And I know that this year, the schools have had to release laptops to a lot of children that didn't have any so they could do the virtual schooling. Would that kind of an expenditure qualify under this program?
It might be Sean Saunders. Do you want to address that? I don't know if Sean is still
There we go.
on.
There we go. No, I'm still on. Yeah. No, I was muted. I apologize. Unfortunately, as part of the CDBG program, the funds can't be used to supplement or replace existing federal funds, which schools are federally funded. And it's explicitly stated that the funds cannot go to public schools, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Vice President?
Ron or Sean, as we move forward with our senior housing initiative, are any of those funds available for some of those costs?
Yes, there would be funding available through CDBG for senior affordable housing. Obviously, we're not ready to apply this year because the application is due in a couple of weeks, but certainly in possibly the following year or subsequent years, we would be able to apply through CDBG for senior affordable housing.
Okay, so even though we've incurred some costs so far, it's not applicable.
I don't believe so. Sean, I don't know if you want to address that.
Right. My apologies, Ron. I didn't mean to interrupt. The funds need to be obligated, they cannot be obligated to an organization or have already been spent prior to application. Part of the process is that these funds would be obligated as part of, like, for example, what we're doing tonight with public participation in mind. So to have already expended the funds, you would not be able to be reimbursed, I guess, after the fact, or to apply after you've already expended the funds. A lot of that has to do, especially in terms of construction work and labor standards that are required through the CDBG program. There's a lot that you have to adhere to. So that is a big reason why for a project like that, you would have to go through the application process first before completing the work.
Thank you. Vice President, you got a follow-up?
I do. So this one's maybe for Sean Brown or Ron. So every year this comes up, this grant. Is it possible, or do we have any other projects? Typically it's, something in Oxbow where there's low to moderate income housing, Commodore Perry. That certainly can use some, I don't know if we could do some sidewalks there potentially and start making that nicer over there. Those types of things.
Yes, we can definitely apply for funding for those things. We have in the past, as you note. Unfortunately, we have not been successful getting funding through CDBG in recent years for those types of projects. There's, I think, been other priorities that maybe Sean Saunders can speak to. What we would have to do is do a survey of the residents of those neighborhoods to confirm that they are still low mod income neighborhoods, which I think we all know that they are. But in order to qualify, we have to do a survey and to document that they still remain low mod income neighborhoods. But yes, we don't have the ability to do that this year because we haven't done the survey, but perhaps next year we can do that.
Okay. Councilor Lombardi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Either Ron or Sean, one of the two, and I may be getting out in front here, but I'm going to ask anyway, seeing as how you mentioned the Windows project at the senior center. I remember the discussion as part of that was the handicap accessibility and the handicap door. Are we planning on applying for that project, and is that going to be part of the request for funding?
So I think we did look at the handicap door, the accessibility issues at the senior center. And one of the big issues was just the configuration of the building itself. As Arlene looked at the back door, using an automatic door opener, basically opened up the main room to the northern winds, which were more problematic as cold air filled the big room that's at the senior center. So there wasn't a desire to move on that quickly. I think what's developed since then is that since we're now putting the application together for the senior housing project, is that the project, like the windows and the doors, are going to become part of the bigger project of renovating the entire complex. So I think that's how this is evolving. Basically, whatever renovations that we do on the new building, those would carry through the details into the existing buildings so that we end up with one complex at the end of the day.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilor Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sean, I kind of thought we had already allocated some resources to fixing those windows and that we were just, also trying to find some funding. I thought that was already slated to be done.
No, so we, on a prior docket, we went out to bid and the price for the windows was in excess of $300,000. We had $86,000 in grant money from CDBG. And with the bid, we were basically looking to see what the difference was. Now that we're into COVID, we know that we'd have to come up with another $210,000 to address the project, which based on the different things that we're addressing in the budget, wasn't something that I had a recommendation for. And as I provided the council the information, it didn't appear that there was an appetite for that project at this period of time. So the money we did have, just to go back to your question, was the $86,000 grant, which we didn't act upon. But there was no other allocation of money from the town council.
And then the CDBG money, what have we been getting on an average when we apply for this?
Well, it changes year to year. It depends on the projects that are submitted and those that are funded by the state. Anywhere from say $100,000 to a couple $100,000 per year, again, depending on the projects. And it's not, that's not money coming to the town necessarily. It's all the projects, the local nonprofits and whatnot that we get funded through our application.
Is it fair to say a lot of our local nonprofits probably count on this money?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so just got to keep that in mind. And we have a lot of projects too. As we know, we formed that affordable housing committee and we recognize, just one project. We're like a third behind all the affordable housing we're supposed to have in Middletown. So we've recognized that and we're trying to look at other ways of finding affordable housing or creating jobs, low to moderate income, opportunities. So I appreciate the effort here. And I know we got something else on the docket to talk about that tonight. So I appreciate the conversation. So thank you.
Mr. Brown, have we, or can we, in regards to the windows at the senior center, since we're getting a little off tangent on with this, can we use mechanical exterior or manual exterior hurricane shutters?
Yeah, we could do something like that.
Maybe you want to think about pricing that out. I know
guess-
that it's very common in Florida, in areas in the Carolinas where they have an abundance of hurricanes. They have mechanical shutters that just go down and the hurricane tested, and or either that or they go up manually. They get bolted on. Maybe we ought to take a look at that for the cost. Because $300,000 is a lot of money. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, good. Okay. Is there anyone else that'd like to make any comments? We're still, okay. Hearing none. Mr. Vice President?
Okay, motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Here, a motion is second to close the public hearing. Counselor Von Villis,
Aye.
Counselor Toronto,
Aye.
Counselor Santos,
aye.
Counselor Lombardi,
Aye.
Counselor Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President,
Aye.
and I vote in the affirmative as well. Okay, thank you. Item number 8, an ordinance of the town of Middletown. This is the second reading, an ordinance and amendment to the town code, Title 11 Business Regulations, Chapter 113, Food Service, see attached ordinance.
Motion to adopt said ordinance on the second reading.
Second,
A motion and a second. Any conversation?
Mr. President,
Counselor Lombardi.
question for the solicitor, I believe. Peter?
Yes, sir.
So do we have concessions and or food trucks already slated for the beach?
We do not, as you know, the council is discussing the status of the beach later tonight, after which I think a number of the concession holders are waiting to see what the plan is for operating the beach. And then, because we do have concessions in place, and then we would expect to be having conversations with those concession holders once the council adopts whatever plan it may adopt.
And they'll go out to bid, correct? If that's what we so.
Well, we
do.
have concessions in place right now. Once the council adopts a plan for the beaches, we then need to have a conversation with those concession holders as to whether or not they want to still proceed with those contracts. So
I guess my question is that while we already have concession holders in place, if we decide we'd like to do that, because there is no one other than one down at Third Beach, can we add, or can they go out to bid so that we can add concessions at the beach, beaches?
And Mr. Brown can correct me if I'm wrong, but with the exception of during special events, some of the family nights we have at the beach, the answer under the current contracts is no.
All right, thank you very much.
Counselor Flynn.
I apologize for my video having to go out, but I'm having technical difficulty and I can't hear from my phone when it's on video. So this ordinance has come to us in 2 drafts, February 18th and May 26th. And the February 18th draft, it failed to pass, as we learned last Tuesday. It was a tie vote. 3 counselors voted in favor and 3 counselors voted to oppose. And on last Tuesday, the council's last meeting, a new draft was presented. And I only see 3 changes from the February 18th draft in the May 26th draft. And they're all in paragraph 113.04. And we got some questions answered last meeting. And so the first one's kind of simple. The start time went from 11 a.m. on the February 18th draft to the May 26th draft. And the council reached a consensus at the February 18th meeting that 6:30 was an appropriate time. So the solicitor told us last week that 8 a.m. was in the ordinance because that's what the current contracts say. So my first question is, could the ordinance, Mr. Regan, simply state that food trucks shall start no earlier than 6:30 a.m. so that the current town contracts can be in place that start at 8 a.m. until they are renewed, if we want them to start earlier?
That would be at the discretion of the council, but there's nothing that would prevent that. If you want to start at 6:30, you could have it start at 6:30.
Okay. So the second change, there were really only 3 major changes. The second change in the May 26th draft from the February 18th draft is the elimination of the areas zoned office business, office park, and light industrial. And these are very typical areas for food trucks, yet they were eliminated in this new draft. So food trucks can only be at second and third beaches and at special events. The last of the three changes is the elimination of the verbiage that a food truck could not be within 750 feet of a restaurant. And of course, with the elimination of all the zoning areas, but the beaches and special events, the verbiage was no longer needed. So my question to Mr. Regan is, you know, you said at the last meeting last Tuesday that you created this draft from council conversation. And I'm just wondering what the process was to do that with a 3-3 vote. Because it does seem that this May 26th draft reflects the sentiments of the three counselors who opposed the February 18th draft, but does not reflect the sentiments of the three counselors who voted in favor of the February 18th draft.
Well, there really was no process, Councilor Flynn. The previous draft, which had a broader area of operation, did not pass. So we prepared a draft which had a narrower area of operation. But certainly any council member that wishes to make a motion to amend the draft ordinance, because it is a draft for the council to review and discuss, certainly has got the ability to make a motion to amend the draft in whatever way they believe is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, so you reported at the February 18th meeting that Middletown has 17 active food truck and 7 mobile cart permits. And I'm just, my first question is, are there any, you know, written complaints against any of these operators?
I would ask the clerk to opine on that.
We haven't received any complaints.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
She has not received any complaints.
Okay, so Middletown currently has 24 permits out there. And am I reading the ordinance correctly that it seems to limit the total to between food truck and food cart to 6? Am I reading that wrong?
No.
12.
So it's 6 or it's 12?
6 of each.
Okay, so it's 12. So if the ordinance passes tonight, what would happen to the other 12 businesses? You have 24 total, you want to knock it to 12. What would happen to the other 12 businesses?
Well,
It wouldn't be able to operate, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Solicitor, unless they had a special event permit.
that's correct.
It's very simple. It seems like we're making this very difficult. And I think, in defense of the solicitor, I don't think there was any conspiracy how he came up with his second collection of, he was trying to put something together that appeased the feelings of the entire council, since it was split on this. Because I certainly am not going to support, I'm not going to support it, no, and I've been very adamant about it, of anybody, a permanent food truck in this town, unless it is in regards to a position, a prepaid rental place at the beach, unless it's a special event.
So duly noted, and may I continue?
You may. Don't
Thank
forget,
you.
you have a clock on you too. So let's move this along.
So I'm putting forth that perhaps the distance from a restaurant should be further than 750 feet, but to totally eliminate this service, and it is a service, it's not good policy in my opinion. And now more than ever with COVID-19, we really should be obligated to allow existing businesses the opportunity to be in business and not add to the unemployment rolls. The current draft ordinance, it stifles business by eliminating potential location opportunity. It crushes existing businesses by eliminating renewal and cutting their numbers right in half. You know, our citizens are going to be carrying the burden of supporting this town if yet another message to any part of the business community is Middletown, Rhode Island does not want you here. I'm not going to support this draft as it written because it does, to me, it doesn't read like good policy. The start time should be 6:30 a.m. The office and industrially zoned areas should be included, and there should be a generous distance from existing brick and mortar restaurants.
Noted. Vice President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So, in the new draft, section 113.03, permit requirement, and they're talking about fees. $75 per year or any part of a year, I think is pretty cheap. I don't know what the going rate is in other communities. I'm hoping that we looked at something like that. But I couldn't disagree more, Terry. I think that you have $75 a year. You have businesses that you would want mobile food trucks pulling up to whatever I know it's 750. I know you wanted more than that, what you just stated, and that's fine, but taking away business from existing businesses that pay thousands of dollars in taxes, and I stated this at the February meeting, and I didn't support it for that reason. I just think it's wrong. You can come in, you're not a Middletown, you're not doing anything for Middletown besides giving us $75, and you can take business away from an existing business that pays thousands of dollars in taxes. That makes no sense to me. So I'm glad it changed. I'm glad it's just for the beach area, special event permits. So that's my position on it.
May I respond?
You may.
Mr. Regan, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't the rates set by the state? Didn't this whole thing sort of get into motion because the state set the permit fees according to their permit system?
The rates for the permits are set by the state under the state statute, and there is a now statewide registration process for mobile food trucks.
Okay, so I don't think we have anything to say about the fees that are charged. And, unless, I heard from, some studies of, impact of food trucks on the restaurant industry, or from the Chamber of Commerce, perhaps, Paul, I couldn't agree with or disagree with you anymore that it's severely impacting their businesses. These food truck guys and gals, they're not going to make a bundle running a food truck. They're going to work hard, like every restaurateur does, for their income. The brick and mortar restaurants, it's a different market. They have the potential to make that much more. I just don't, I was happy to look at studies, but without evidence, I'm opposed to limiting business opportunities in town.
Okay. Vice President.
Sorry, Bob.
I just don't want to, both of you are
understand, but
repeating the same things.
I'm not going to repeat the same thing. I didn't realize it was set by the state, but Terry, now that you said that, and Peter confirmed that, I do remember after he said it. But again, we have to follow the state, which I don't know why. Maybe that's why they're 900,000 and 900 million in the hole. But anyway, I just think it takes away from businesses, and to me, I don't really need evidence. Just common sense tells me that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a comment if I may.
You may, Council Santos.
Thank you, sir. If I understand what everybody is saying and what Mrs. Flynn said and was repeated, there are 24 at the present time food trucks and 12 carts. Let's start with that. Am I correct on that?
No, Councilor Santos, there's 24 total right now.
Okay,
and
that wasn't clear.
That by this ordinance would drop instantly to 12.
12, all right. Now,
Yep.
Would that be food carts, Mr. President, or would that be the mobile trucks?
The availability, the issue is this. There's X amount of permits, except
Correct.
to go out full-time.
Okay.
Although you can get special use permits for 1 or 2 day events anytime.
Okay.
The issue that I have is the same one that I brought up before, is that I don't want somebody coming in from another city or town, like the Vice President said, and taking business away from brick and mortar businesses that we have in town. I don't have a problem with people that bid for a spot at one of our beaches and they're there all year. That's fine. That's competitive, but not for somebody to come in from another town, come in to our town, pay a $75 fee and grab business away from people that are struggling and trying to survive here in the town of Middletown.
Understood. I spoke to a mobile unit today, and he has spent thousands of dollars to bring his food truck up to code according to state law. And I believe that he may be wanting to speak tonight regarding this. Now, he is the only individual in the Enterprise Park, and he has been there for a number of years. I have even visited him. Now, he's not going to be able to be in that location. Am I correct?
Yes, on a full-time basis, you're correct.
All right, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Any other comments? Vice President.
Bob, we have a caller, just by phone, so we don't know who it is. But
Can you hear me?
Name and
Can you
address,
hear me?
please. Yes.
Hi, my
name
name
and
is
address.
John Ashley. I live on 60 Selena Lane, Portsmouth. Lived most of my life on Aquidneck Island, Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth. I am the owner of the Castaway Gourmet food truck, the one that Santos was just talking about. I was at Enterprise Center over there where KVH and Embrace Home Loans for the last around 8 years. I do lunch there. And with the way things are going right now with business the way it is, my season basically has been canceled. I mean, I'm not doing the Bristol concert series. I don't know about the Second Beach. I usually do the Second Beach concerts and the bonfires they do out there.
Mhm.
I do your Founders Day at Paradise Park. I've been doing that for the last 8 or 9 years. I just spent $3,700 putting everything I needed for all the new Rhode Island codes into my truck. I spent 25 years in the restaurants. I was the kitchen manager at Dry Dock Seafood for 9 years. I was at Perini's restaurant as the sous chef for 5 years. And I was the head chef at Roberto's restaurant in Bristol for 10 years. I left Roberto's and I decided I wanted to go to work for myself. So I cobbled together my food truck. And it's not easy. Anybody that thinks that you could just get a food truck, I had a guy telling me one time, I'm going to go out and buy a food truck and sell hamburgers and hot dogs. I said, good luck. With all the regulations, all the things, I have always, from the time I started my business, paid taxes, never late, and not only the $75 fee that is paid for Middletown, I also put Middletown down when I pay my quarterly taxes. Now, at Embrace Home Loans and KVH, there's 700 people there. Next door, down the road, there's McDonald's, there's the sushi place, there's the Thai place. They've never complained about their business being impacted by my little truck doing 35 or 40 lunches for the 700 people that live and work around KVH and Embrace Home Loans. I would ask you guys to leave things the way they are. I mean, it's regulation after regulation. Here I am. I'm going to be put out of business. I don't have any public places to go this
John,
summer.
I have to ask you to bring this to a conclusion. Your time's up.
Okay, I'm bringing it to a conclusion. That's my conclusion. I would ask you, I would beg you. This is my business. I paid a lot of dues, and I've been in Middletown for 8, 9 years doing it.
Okay, John, I got to cut you off. Council Lombardi.
I'm cut off.
Mr. President, members of the council. So I saw the ordinance the way it came out, and to answer one of the questions Mrs. Santos brought up, not all, we've we've got 6 food trucks and 6 food carts from 24 existing ones that are out there. I spoke to a business owner who's got a, lack of a better way to put it, a brick and mortar on Aquidneck Avenue. He had a food truck. He explained to me that the overhead and the money that it costs to operate a food truck, it's pretty expensive and it's a lot of work. It's labor intensive. They put a lot of time and a lot of effort to get that truck out there, no matter where they go. So it's not as easy as the last caller said, going out and buying a truck and making hamburgers and hot dogs. There's a lot of regulations that are imposed by the health department and the like. I have a real problem with us cutting it in half and limiting it to one particular area of town. As I listen, I got one phone call from one brick and mortar who complained about the food truck ordinance. One. And I think we all got the call from the same person. I don't discount what he's saying, but the fact of the matter is that when a food truck is 6-7 miles away and you're telling me that it's going to impact your business for lunches, I'm not buying it. And I'm not buying because I know from talking to some of these food truck operators what they're bringing in a given day. I'm just sorry. I want to see us have opportunities more than just 12 licenses out there. We are going to impact people who are from Middletown. They're not all out-of-towners. And I'm telling you, the guy on Aquidneck Avenue sold his truck. And I'll tell you guys privately who it is later, because I don't feel like he's given me permission to mention his business name, but we all know who it is, and he runs a heck of a business up there. So with that said, I'm torn right now. I think we should increase the number of licenses. That's what I think we should do. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor Santos.
may we limit these food trucks only to island food trucks and not out of state? Or not, I should say, off the island? Just the food trucks that are registered in the Aquidneck Island.
Mr. Solicitor.
Unfortunately, we can't do that under the new state law. Once a mobile food operation has received their state registration, we can't impose any additional requirements such as a residency specifically in the state law. So we would not be able to do that. The only thing that the council really has the ability to control is the number of licenses and where they operate. It really comes down to those 2 items. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any further conversation? Councilor Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to listen carefully to what everyone had to say. And the first thought I'm having is I'm not voting for anything that eliminates people's jobs today. We are in a tough time, and you're going to take that caller who just called in, and who are the 12 people you're going to say don't have a job any longer? We haven't had one complaint, and now we're ready to change everything. We do this. We have things that, and I won't go to other areas where we say, oh, we've got a big problem here. And then when you look into it, there's no calls. So we've had this business, these trucks that have been in business and these carts, and I haven't heard one complaint from anyone. But now we want to, because the state wants to look into it, now we want to make some changes. I think we should leave it the way it is. We haven't had any complaints. So I am not voting to eliminate anybody's livelihood tonight. If it turns into be a problem, where they're showing up in areas and they're taking business from people and people start calling us, we can go back and change it. Is that fair to say? Peter?
Yeah, if somebody is violating the
You're
ordinance,
not coming in very clear, Peter. You're kind of muffed.
I'll do my best, Councilman Santos. If someone is violating the ordinance, you do have a right to revoke the license or take other action. You do have a right to increase, decrease the number of licenses, increase or decrease the areas in which those can operate.
Right.
Again, this is really a policy decision by the council as to what they want to do.
Right. So we've had no complaints. I've had one person contact me out of all the brick and mortar in Middletown. And so I don't see a reason for this drastic of a change. So
Okay.
I will not be voting for this tonight.
Okay, so I mean, we all have a vote. The motion has been seconded. So if you're in favor of the ordinance as presented, you'd vote in the affirmative. If not, you'd vote in the negative. And we'll take the vote. Any other further comments on this? Okay. Councilor Von Villas.
Yeah, I had no opinion either way in regard to this, but I'm wondering why we need to rush to do this in a time when things are so bad for everybody. So I'm really hesitant about putting something that's restrictive in place when people are suffering a lot. So I'm gonna have a tough time supporting this.
Okay. If you don't support it, that's fine. But this was supposed to be done, and I'm gonna ask the solicitor, this was supposed to be in effect like 6 months ago, wasn't it? One way or the other?
It was supposed to be in effect back in 2019. So if this does not pass, then I will, as I did last time, try my best to read the room and come back to you with a revised draft so that we can get something on the book, because state law does require us.
Okay, so let's move this along. Let's just take the vote. If you don't want to pass this, don't vote for it. Vote against it and let the chips fall as they may. Okay? So we have a motion second. Councilor Von Villas, how do you vote?
No.
Okay? Councilor Toronto,
No.
Councilor Santos,
No.
Councilor Lombardi,
No.
Councilor Flynn,
No.
Vice President. Vice President?
I didn't realize I was muted. I approve it.
And I'm going to approve it. Okay, so it fails by 5-2. Okay, so Mr. Solicitor, without anyone thinking there's a conspiracy going on, maybe you can get a feel for what you heard tonight and put something together, okay?
I'll give it another
All right.
try. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, item number 9. Before we start item number 9, because of a conflict, Mr. Brown has called the Ethics Commission. I'm going to ask, I'm going to make a motion that for item number 9 only, that we appoint the town solicitor as the acting town administrator for that one item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to pull the council. We have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand why I'm doing this? There's a conflict. So I'm just going to have the town solicitor sit in as the town's administrator for this item only. Okay? All right. So for that motion, we have a second. Councilor Von Villas.
Aye.
Councilor Toronto.
Aye.
Councilor Santos.
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi.
Aye.
Councilor Flynn.
Aye.
Vice President.
Wait a minute. No, I'm just kidding, Peter. Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. Okay, thank you. All right. Now, item number 9, communication of James C. Plazetti, BQ Energy with enclosures, transmittal letter, solar breakers project, reference NAVSTA, Newport Tank Farm 4, landfill in Burma Road.
Second.
Motion to receive
Oh, sorry.
communication.
Vice President,
Motion to receive said communication.
Second.
and motion is second. Any conversation? Councilor Flynn, are you adjusting your screen or are you waving?
I am waving.
I
That
can't
is a
tell
raise.
because your monitor's been all over the board all night long.
I'm having an interesting battle with technology.
I'm having an interesting battle watching you. Okay,
I apologize.
okay, okay.
So,
Question, go ahead.
well, I have to say, this kind of took me a little by surprise. I went back to clerk base to see if I missed something. And the only time I see anything on there from the NAVSTA is back in July of 2016. There was nothing in our minutes regarding solar breakers. So my first question is planning or zoning involved in this project?
No.
Everybody, tonight we're just receiving this communication. We're not approving anything tonight.
Well, that was my next question. What is council's
Mr. Solicitor, go ahead.
So my recommendation at this point in time, because number one, it would be the normal course, and number two, I don't think there's enough information available for the council to consider this at this time, is that the matter be referred to the Roads and Utilities Committee for review. And in the meantime, I will be in contact with the applicant to obtain further and more detailed information so that the matter can get the proper consideration. I don't think we have that at this time. And then eventually it will come back to the council.
All we're doing is receiving it. Councilor Flynn.
So will it not go through planning and zoning, Mr. Regan?
I don't believe so, because the actual solar project is in Portsmouth at the tank farm. This is a transmission line that they're seeking to run from Burma Road to Browns Lane.
So, and the process on this, I was a little concerned in their package that DEM is coming up with some updated regulations with the wetlands buffers. And in the packet, it was noted that if an application was submitted, I assume with DEM, that if they did it before the enactment of the improved regulations, that they would be grandfathered not to have to comply with the new regulations. So I think that, a message from the council might want to be that, no matter when their application goes in, I don't know if we can do this, that whatever the new regulations are should be complied with.
Well, once again, I don't think we have enough information at this point in time. The only thing that we would like the council to do is to receive and refer to the Roads and Utility Committee, and then we'll begin the process of asking for additional information so that the council can consider it at a later date.
And one last item on that, I understand it's going to come back. It needs to go someplace else. A resident did write in today, and I guess there are options with what they can do here that I think the council would like to see. And I think one of the points that the resident made was that the residents of that area have not been notified. I know that might not be required by our statute or ordinance, but I think that should be a consideration for going forward for this group.
Yeah, I think what we'd like to see is to have a public hearing in front of the council when at such time as it eventually comes back.
Okay,
And
thank you very much.
Again, all we're doing is receiving the communication tonight. Okay? All right. And we have a second. Councilor Von Villas, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Toronto?
Mr. President, before I vote, things move very quickly around here, so having a chance to ask a few questions is good. And I do support what Terry has said, because I've gotten communication from people in that neighborhood that don't have any understanding of what's going on, so.
We understand that, Councilor Toronto, but the point is, all we're doing is receiving their communication.
I
We
know.
will be conducting hearings.
I know, but you know how fast things move around here, so I will second
Some
receipt.
things move fast,
I-
some things don't.
Not everything.
Okay, aye.
Councilor Santos,
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi,
Aye.
Councilor Flynn. Councilor
Aye.
Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President,
Aye.
and I vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you. And we'll also, as part of that, I'll make a motion that we refer to the roads and utilities, and the solicitor is going to be taking the point on this. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any conversation on that? Councilor Flynn, conversation?
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. Councilor Von Villas?
Aye.
Councilor Toronto?
Bob, thank you for your motion. I appreciate that. And,
Councilor Santos?
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi?
Aye.
Councilor Flynn?
Aye.
Vice President?
Aye.
And I vote affirmative as well. Thank you. Okay, item number 10. Communication of Attorney Turner C. Scott with enclosures, utility burial project, Third Beach, Paradise Valley.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to receive. Council Von Villas?
Aye.
Well, any discussion on this? And we've gone over this before. Councilor Flynn?
Just another question. So we're just receiving this communication. Is this going also somewhere and coming back to us?
Solicitor?
The next item on the agenda is a resolution on this item, but this current item you're simply moving to receive. And I believe Mr. Scott was planning to be on the line as well, if there were any questions.
But this motion is just to receive this communication.
So, okay, so just to receive it, okay. Are we gonna have a discussion after we receive it or no?
The next item.
The next item, okay, so I would have one comment.
Okay, go ahead.
So again, that same issue with the DEM working on, and I don't know if this area has any freshwater wetlands. I just don't know the maps. I didn't have the time to do the research. But again, if there are new regulations coming out and they have to do some sort of application, I think Middletown's message might want to be, we want you to comply with the upcoming regulations, not just what's in place now.
Okay. Again, this is to receive the communication. We have a second. Any further questions in regards to receiving this communication? Okay. Councilor Von Villas?
Aye.
Councilor Toronto?
Aye.
Councilor Santos?
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi?
Aye.
Councilor Flynn?
Aye.
Vice President?
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you. Item number 11, resolution of the council in support of the scenic Third Beach project.
Motion to pass said resolution and authorize the town administrator to execute any necessary approvals required by Cox or National Grid.
Second.
Okay. Conversation.
Question?
Surprise. Terry, Councilor Flynn.
Well, I like to make sure I know what I'm voting for, Mr. President,
Okay.
as you well know. So when we say that we fully support the scenic Third Beach project, is that conceptually or all the details?
Conceptually. My
Perfect.
opinion, my perspective, my opinion would be perceptual.
I don't know, Mr. President, I'm not sure if Mr. Scott is on the line, but my understanding, and town administrator can correct me, that this project is actually ready to move forward and has all the approvals in place. This was, as you know, details were discussed with the council in the past. It's a multi-million-dollar project that is privately funded to bury these utilities. And my understanding from speaking with Mr. Scott this afternoon is that other than signing the approvals with National Grid and Cox, that this project is ready to move forward, and they've been coordinating with the Public Works Director to move it forward and get it done. So this is more than conceptual. This would be approving the project. And then the administration would coordinate it moving forward.
There's been no changes since Mr. Scott appeared in front of us, correct?
Correct.
This is the same plan that he presented to us in person that we all looked at, and we thought it was a great gesture on the person that was paying for this, certainly. But Mr. Brown, is there any Reader's Digest version of anything you would like to add?
No, the applicant, which represents the neighborhood on Indian Avenue, have been working over the past year to secure easements on private property to construct the project that they presented to the council. I think it's been about a year now, and they are ready to start the project. They're looking for this resolution and the other authorities so that they can begin construction, and also to start advertise the fact that they are spending a considerable amount of money to begin this initiative. So it is the project that was presented to you a year ago, and they are ready to proceed to construction.
Okay, thank you. Vice President.
Mr. Scott is on the line and would like to talk.
Okay. Mr. Scott, name and address, please.
Turner Scott. I'm an attorney in Newport, 122 Toro Street. At this point, I'm representing Preserve Rhode Island, Quinnick Island Land Trust, and Preservation Society of Newport County, which are the main movers behind this project, as well as the residents of Indian Avenue and Third Beach Road. This is a $3.8 million project that is funded basically from some DEM grant will hopefully be approved to assist, but mostly from a foundation, the Van Buren Foundation, as they did for the third beach, second beach project, has contributed considerable monies. The project has not changed. It starts at the Navy Beach and removes all but one telephone pole from the third beach. From Third Beach, the old Navy Beach. I remember it as a kid as the old Navy Beach, all the way up to Indian Avenue, down Indian Avenue to Taggart's Ferry. One pole will be left because Verizon Wireless needs to be able to have communication to your Third Beach access road and ramp down there, boat ramp. But it'll be a smaller pole than what's there now. In the neighborhood of that Osprey pole that the crows chew up every time somebody starts putting things on there. But I did see an osprey the other morning when I was riding my bike. There was an osprey sitting on that osprey pole. So we're looking forward to starting in about a month. And we've been coordinating with Tom O'Loughlin, Jim Farrar, who has a great reputation for construction projects. We've got almost all the money, and all the money is guaranteed one way or the other. We hope to put a press release out tomorrow with pending your approval on this. Verizon and National Grid have given the administration the requests. All they need is a sign off from you, and we can start that project. We feel it's a good time to start it because there aren't gonna be that many cars on the road this summer, and we might be able to get this thing done and finished before it becomes a problem. And that's about it. I think my letter spelled it that you received. I think spells it out. Good people behind this. The Norman Bird Sanctuary has been very supportive, as have all the individuals. We have 35 easements that I've had to get from, and getting 35 easements from people on Indian Avenue was not an easy task, believe me, but we did it. And they're ready to be recorded as soon as you guys approve it, hopefully, knock on wood, then I'll be at the town hall with 33 or 34 easements that bury all those lines. And I was there this morning, 7:30, not a lot of cars in the road, and it's going to be amazing when all those poles come down. As I think you guys saw when all the poles on Second Beach came down. I'd ask for your unanimous support on this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Council Lombardi?
So this is exciting, and this is a perfect example of a public-private partnership that is unparalleled in a lot of ways. And it just goes to show you how quickly things can move when government doesn't get their toe in the water as much as they like to at times. I can't commend Mr. Scott and those residents down on Indian Avenue in the area for making this happen. It's going to really make that area so much more attractive. It's going to be beautiful down there. Mr. Scott, I can't tell you how pleased I am to support this. And I'm sure the rest of my fellow councils will do so, but it's exciting and I really want to see it happen quick.
Vice President?
Yeah, I agree with Rick. I think it's a great project. Those folks involved to be commended. I just have one question for Mr. Scott. Turner, would they be interested in assisting us in the Lower Quinnick Avenue Atlantic Beach District?
Attaboy, Paul.
Oh, bad.
Well, I'll tell you that discussion has come up in the discussions with my clients, and it is something they are looking into. I mean, there's no question about it. Yes. I don't know if I can pull the trigger on that one, but I can certainly continue to press that issue for that be one of the next projects that they look at.
Okay. Anyone else like to ask any questions?
Mr. President,
Council Santos?
Mr. Scott, thank you very much. And to all the people who are involved in this, it's making Middletown beautiful again. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the people who contributed to this and all the people on Indian Avenue. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Turner, I'm going to echo what everybody said. You and I have spoken. I think this is fantastic. I want to thank you for your participation and your drive in this, and certainly for the donors that came up with this funding. And great project. Come back to Middletown anytime and do this.
I'll try.
Thank you, Turner. We have a motion, and it's been seconded. Council Von Villas?
Paul, want to talk?
President, Vice President?
Sorry,
Vice
we
President?
have another caller, Bob.
Okay.
Bob Silva.
Mr. Silva?
Can you hear me, Mr. President?
Yes,
We can hear you.
Thank you. I want to commend the council for looking favorably on this Indian Avenue project. I would just like to say that when Mr. Scott referenced the fact that his people have been asked to look at the area that Vice Council President Rodriguez referenced, the so-called Quidnick Beach area, there's been discussion between Middletown Economic Development Corporation, myself, John Bagwell, who's a member, and Jim Farrar. We actually met with our town planner, Ron Wolanski, and inquired as to what Mr. Farrar's thoughts were about such a project, which includes getting private easements as well on Quinnick Avenue, and whether he'd be willing to assist us in contemplating how to proceed. He agreed to do so, and there's been some dialogue, I think, between Turner Scott's clients and the town of Middletown. So Paul's reference to Quinnick Avenue is well taken, and we've already started that process to see if there's a possibility of bringing about a favorable result in the neighborhood district down there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further conversations? All right, Council Von Villas?
Aye.
Counselor Toronto?
Bob, I just wanted to let you know, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to repeat what everyone had to say, but it was my idea. So yes.
Thank you, Counselor Toronto.
Hmm.
Counselor Santos?
Aye.
Counselor Lombardi?
Aye.
Counselor Flynn?
Aye.
Counselor Vice President?
You know, Dennis, one of my favorite words is "we." Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you. Okay, item number 12, memorandum of Sarah Jurgen, Quinnick Island Planning Commission Chair, with enclosures, report and update on AIPC activities and finance.
Motion to receive said memorandum and report.
Second.
Yeah,
You're
motion
coming in
second to
broken.
receive. Any conversation on receiving this memorandum? Okay, hearing none. Councilor Von Villas,
Aye.
Councilor Toronto,
Aye.
Councilor Santos,
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi,
Aye.
Councilor Flynn,
Aye.
Vice President,
Aye.
and myself, I vote in the affirmative. Okay. Okay, item number 13. A memorandum from myself with enclosures, RE, beaches, and campground discussion. Before we open this up, I just want to make a couple comments, I think, which are important to make. There's been a lot lately, a lot of email exchanges, a lot of very passionate, enthusiastic residents. There's been information that's been disseminated to residents that is not necessarily has been validated or has been nothing more than maybe just thoughts or conversations. I want to assure everybody a number of things. First of all, nothing has been decided on. We will make this decision tonight, as I said a couple of weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I made it very clear, like we were going to open up in a phase, which we did. Everything went well. We had our fingers crossed, and we're hoping forward, moving forward tonight. I want to remind everybody, though, that we're still under a state of emergency. The governor of the state of Rhode Island has us in a state of emergency. We have authorized our town administrator, Sean Brown, to execute a state of emergency. Technically, our authority as a governmental body has been limited, and it has been limited through this whole COVID-19 episode. And it will be until there's no longer a state of emergency. So I just want to make that perfectly clear that we can't make, our town administrator, who I have a lot of faith in, that has a lot of not only longevity with the town, he has a lot of history with the town. And, he took the position very seriously, and he continues to take it very seriously. And we asked him to put a plan together to work on to opening of the beaches tonight. And I'm going to ask Mr. Brown and to share that with us. There's some people that wanted to get that out earlier, and I was reluctant to do it because it seems like every time a little bit of information gets out, it gets the scuttlebutt and the extras get added on to what hasn't been voted upon by the governmental body, and us being a governmental body. Tonight, hopefully, we're going to do it. But I want to make another thing very, very clear. And so even the people that are listening in tonight, and those of us that are going to make some decisions tonight on this, is that this is just temporarily. This is the business plan or outline that we established tonight is going to be fluid. It's going to be evolving. It's going to be changing. As does the state of emergency, as does the CDC, and safe distance guidelines change, so will we. This is going to be moving. So I'm just want to assure everybody tonight that I'd like to get some initial plans to open them up, set, put it in some competent hands, Mr. Brown and his team's hands, and let them run with it. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll be watching it. But at the same token, it's evolving. It changes every day. We have meetings every single day. And as for the people that called in, what are other cities and towns doing? Other cities and towns, as far as I'm concerned, are way behind us in a lot of ways. Not all of them, but some of them are. They don't know what to do. They're having issues with this all across the state of Rhode Island. The governor clearly came out and said she's going to open the state beaches. She did. But a lot of people took that as business as usual. It's not business as usual. It's businesses without lifeguards, with limited restroom facilities. It's not the same. And it's also being scrutinized for compliance in regards to CDC and safe distancing guidelines. So I just want to make that perfectly clear to everybody. It's not something that appears to be something that's easy. This is something that, these are mandates. We have to act in accordance with the CDC and safe distance guidelines. We have no choice. The state is in a state of emergency. And I'll tell you, when something like that gets executed, I mean, look at our General Assembly and our Senate. They're not even in sessions because the governor took control as a state of emergency. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. You know, hopefully the good thing is going to be this isn't going to last much longer and things will somehow get back to semi-normalcy. I don't think we'll ever see normalcy as we saw it before. So we're going to open this up, and when we open this up, and I'm going to ask the Vice President to read the motion. Second, and we'll open this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the town administrator, I've asked him to put together a presentation that he feels and his team, which they've been working on. And I know as recently as this afternoon, they were working on this to finalize it to something for us tonight. So having said that, Mr. Vice President.
Motion to receive, seven members.
Second.
We have a motion second to receive. Councilor Von Villas?
Aye.
Councilor Toronto?
Aye.
Councilor Santos?
Aye.
Councilor Lombardi?
Aye.
Councilor Flynn?
Aye.
Vice President?
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. Okay, again, I asked them to put something together so we could review it to give us a foundation and a starting point for our conversations, okay? Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess just wait for the presentation to come up.
Yeah, I have it on my screen.
There we go. As the council president just shared, over the past week, we've been working on an operating plan to present to the town council this evening. We did have a draft proposal that was given to the council after the last meeting. And since then, the staff have been working not only on the plan, but also at the beach, getting it ready to open up. You know, something that we believe will provide residents and other patrons an opportunity to use our beaches, and also do it in a manner that's safe for the people that visit and our employees. That's another important part to this. So we can go to the next slide. I'm going to go through the different programs that run through the beach program and run through how we envision opening those up. The first is the campground. I think in the original proposal that was distributed last week, we had talked about opening the campground on this Friday. We have some issues that we need to resolve, but basically what's being proposed is that we would open the facility on Friday, June 12th to campers. We're proposing that we would have seasonal rentals only at the site. The current site has 46 spaces. We're basically eyeing having approximately 20 spaces filled at the campground site. Campers would have to comply with state and local orders and regulations. The Department of Business regulation has issued a number of regulations for campgrounds. So one of them being that we can only have seasonal rentals. There are no monthly or daily rentals allowed. The common areas will be closed. There's limitations on visitors at the sites right now. As the council president said, I believe those rules will change over the summer, but we've worked with the solicitor to make amendments to the lease agreement so that campers would be responsible for following the orders throughout the summer season. The last piece related to the campground is that we would change the seasonal fee. We would prorate that to reflect the delayed opening. In a regular season, there would be 19 weeks in the campground season. A total cost would be $7,800. Under this proposed season, there would be 15 weeks, which would basically prorated would be $6,100 for the season. Will Cronin, who's our facilities person, has already started working with our campground manager. We have been in contact with a number of our campers, and there is an interest in coming back to the campground. So I think this is the first place, the first program I wanted to review with you. Mr. President, I don't know if you want me to go through all the slides, or you want me to stop and take questions, or how you want to do this.
Why don't you go through your whole presentation? Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you to go back to the campground, and then we'll go through them one at a time. Why don't we go through the whole thing?
Okay. The second program is the moorings program, a little more straightforward. We would operate the seasonal mooring program in a normal fashion. There would be no change there. As we get on with this, there is a discussion about third beach parking being used for residents only. We would set up something where someone who is a non-resident mooring patron, we would allow them to purchase a non-resident parking pass and access the third beach parking area, which I believe is what occurs in prior seasons. So non-resident mooring patrons would be able to access the parking lot at Third Beach if the purpose of their visit is to use the moorings. We are proposing to suspend the transient mooring program. That's the program where basically someone can come into the harbor, tie up to one of the town's moorings, and pay an overnight fee. But we are proposing that we suspend that for right now, just based on the number of regulations that we would need to enforce regarding quarantine of boats and ships. We do end up with a lot of people that come through the area, and just the transient nature is a little bit to manage with the limited resources with the harbor master. With the mooring program, we're proposing no change to the fee schedule, so there would be no changes there. We do have a program for kayak racks, and also stored on the kayak racks are dinghies. The residential kayak space rental would operate normally under the proposal. So residents would continue to be allowed to rent space and store their kayaks down at Third Beach. We would suspend the non-resident rentals. So basically, we would not renew those spaces for the upcoming season. The one carve out that we would propose is that a non-resident mooring patron who rents space for a dinghy would be allowed to continue doing so. And again, this would be another area where there would be no change in the fee schedule. I'm going to get to the beaches. We are proposing that we open Second Beach on June 6th, this upcoming Saturday. We would open up the main lot and the surfers lot, and we would operate the beach. Basically, we had originally, we've sort of gone back and forth looking at a reservation system, but I think as we settled through how to manage the upcoming year. We're proposing that we basically run the season using season passes as a way to access the beaches. So that would be the only way to access the parking lots. We would not be doing daily parking transactions at the gates. So main lot and surface lot would be open to season pass holders, and it would be on a first come, first served basis. The solicitor and I had a long conversation about this afternoon, and we will be amending, if this goes forward, the forms that residents get, making certain that it's absolutely clear that if you buy a season pass, that it is going to be on a first come, first served basis. There will be some changes to how we operate the lots. The first is that 50% of the spaces in the main lot at Second Beach would be reserved for Middletown residents. And that is allowed under the grant paperwork that the grant restrictions that the town is subject to. We would also, at Surfers Lot, we would open that lot to Middletown residents only. So what we're trying to do is, two things. One is to recognize the residents within the town, and we're also trying to work towards, what the governor is calling a stable population, in the sense that we're trying to get as many Middletown residents in the lot so that we can limit our risk of exposure to COVID. The way that we're sort of managing the beach, the density or the social distancing on the beach is limiting the number of parking spaces. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but the number of parking spaces will be restricted to achieve the required amount of social distancing required to maintain community health. And as the council president said, we would start with a number of cars within the parking lots, see how it goes, see what the tides are doing, see how people are, whether they're coming to the beach in their cars or coming to the beach in their bikes or walking. But that number would be somewhat fluid as we go through the season. If you go down to the beach over the weekend, we installed the lifeguard chairs. There are 8 lifeguard chairs on Second Beach. 7 chairs are on the main beach and 1 is on the surfer's end. That is a reduction in chairs, but right now we wouldn't be able to put additional chairs on the east side of the beach because of piping plovers that have nested there. But there would be 7 chairs on the main beach, 1 chair on surfer's end. Restrooms at the main pavilion would not open immediately. We do have some issues to address there before we could operate restrooms at the main pavilion. However, we have worked with our porta potty vendor, and we would be looking at increasing the number of porta potties across the facility, as well as increasing how often they're disinfected, and working with our employees to make sure they're cleaned more frequently. We would be proposing that the carry in, carry out trash program be implemented at Second Beach, similar to what's at Third Beach, making patrons responsible for their own trash removal from the facility. And lastly, the concessionaire would be allowed to operate at the facility in accordance with guidance from the state. We have not spoken to, we've been in contact with the concessionaire. They have been waiting to hear how we're going to open the beach so that we can continue that discussion to evaluate how they may open at Second Beach, but there is no restriction against them from opening and operating. So that's Second Beach. For Third Beach, similar to Second Beach, we would open up Third Beach on June 6th. We would open up the boat ramp and the town beach slots to resident pass holders only on a first come, first served basis. And similar to Second Beach, the number of parking spaces would be restricted to achieve the required social distancing. We have installed 2 lifeguard chairs on the beach and they will be staffed. And again, we would be utilizing portable toilets on the facility, which is, we don't have a permanent toilet facility at that beach. And we would increase the number of portable toilets on the beach itself. Again, the concessionaire that operates down at Third Beach would be allowed to operate in accordance with guidance from the state. And that would be a discussion that would be forthcoming in the upcoming days as we try to get this open. This slide summarizes the number of parking places that we would have at the different lots. And just to walk through it a little bit, in the left-hand column, you would have the lots that we would be operating, which would be the main lot at Second Beach, the surfers lot at Second Beach, the boat ramp at Third Beach, and the town beach at Third Beach. And you can see in the second column, we would be basically operating across all of the lots for residents with 375 dedicated or reserved parking places. There would be 200 spaces at the main lot, 55 at Surfers Lot, 80 at the ramp, and 40 at the beach lot. There would also be at Second Beach in the third column, another 200 spaces that would be available to the general public. So starting as of this upcoming Saturday, we would operate with 575 spaces across the two beaches. Just a little background, because I know this question is going to come up, is how do we come up with those? And we've received a number of emails. A number of people have done work with using GIS and things like that. We've also done that analysis. We've done work with the DEM. I've been in contact with the other cities and towns about what they're doing on their beaches. Excuse me. We're basically starting looking at, we've sort of taken a modular approach to this, not only because, and there's a number of reasons for that, but we basically are looking at this from the standpoint of a lifeguard chair as sort of the basic unit of building the organization. A lifeguard chair guards about 300 feet of shoreline. And when we look at the beach, there's about 75 feet of depth, which gives us about 22,500 square feet of bathing area where someone might, set up to enjoy the beach day. So we're basically using that area as area that people will actually bathe when they go to the beach. Right now at Third Beach, we're using a measure of 144 square feet per patron. And at Second Beach, we're using a measure of 102 square feet per patron. And again, those are numbers that I think as we get more people on the beach, we can start to evaluate whether or not they're accurate enough or not. Those numbers have been batted around by the staff that works at the beach, as well as the town engineer and public works director, looking at factors like the tide, like the areas that are inhabited by the plovers, where people walk on the beach. And again, I think we've tried to run numbers through the different models that are available, and we seem to come up in the same ballpark, at least for an initial number of people that we can basically get on the beach itself. The next number that we look at is we make an assumption on the number of people that arrive by car versus walk onto the beach. Right now, we're starting with a split of 80-20, 80% of the patrons coming to the beach by car, 20% walking on through some other method. And then the final number that we use to come up with the number is how many people come in a car. And that number we're using right now is 3.2 patrons per vehicle. And that's a number that the state has been using based on the data that they've collected from their parking lots. So that's a snapshot of how many cars or spaces we would have this upcoming Saturday. And then just to stress, as the council president said, we would continue to evaluate that. If that's too many cars, we have too many walk-ons, then we would reduce the number of cars or take some other steps to manage the number of people on the beach. And if the beach doesn't, if there's available space on the beach, then we increase the number of cars. So it's a rather fluid situation. The one thing that's not fluid is the standards that are set by the state, at which we have to make sure that we have the proper social distancing at the facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
I have a couple more, just.
Go ahead.
Yep. So beach operating schedule, as of right now, beach operations would be staffed from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. The lots themselves would be locked at 9 p.m. with the exception of the surfer's lot and the ramp lot. Those would remain open at night. So say for the boat ramp, for people that, fishermen that might leave early or might go out late, leaving the surfer's end open would allow people to access Second Beach early in the morning, because there are those people that get up and recreate. We would use the police department to basically clear those lots out before we start operations in the morning. But that's sort of our plan to operate the lots. Go to the next slide. The parking fee schedule that we're basically under, again, we're working off of passes. We're not
Excuse me.
working off of daily rates.
Are we supposed to see these slides? I'm seeing nothing. We're not supposed to see these slides, are we?
There are slides that
I'm
I
seeing
can
them.
see it.
Yeah, we can see him.
I'm watching.
I can see him.
I can see him.
I don't see any slides.
You haven't seen any of the slides?
Nope.
Wow. Council Von Villas, have you seen them?
All of them.
Council Lombardi?
Yep.
I know Council Santos, are you on Zoom? No.
No, I'm not.
You're on the phone. Okay, Council Toronto?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see him as well myself.
Okay.
Are you on the phone, on your phone?
I am on my phone tonight. Is that why?
That's why
Yes.
you can't see the slides.
Okay. Can you send me that PowerPoint another day? It's not my night.
Okay. Mr. Brown, continue.
Sure. The cost of passes, there is no recommendation to change them, so they would remain constant. So a seasonal pass for resident would be $70, a senior pass $65, a motorcycle pass would be $30. For non-residents, a regular pass would be $140, a senior pass would be $130, and a motorcycle pass would be $60. The two changes that are proposed, at least for this year, for the 2020 season, is that the issuance of a free pass for Third Beach would be suspended for the season. So there would not be a free beach at Third Beach. You would be required to purchase a pass. The issuance, and then the second is that the issuance of the free second pass for two residents would also be suspended for the season. One of the challenges of this plan is that with the reduced amount of parking and without the daily parking, there is a significant drop in revenue. So we do need to generate some revenue from the pass program. And that's why we suggest that the free pass be suspended for the year. And then with the free second pass, the thought process there is that we're trying to get as many people into the beach as possible. And it doesn't entirely seem to be equitable if I go down with my first pass and then my wife and kids go down with the second pass. We basically want to give each Middletown family an opportunity to get to the beach. So we would be issuing one pass per, there would be no free passes to the facility. You can just go to the next slide. That will be this will be the last slide. The town would begin to sell passes Thursday and Friday this week, starting at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. They would be sold down at the gazebo, down at Second Beach. And then beginning on June 6th, we would basically be selling them through the business hours that I talked about earlier. We would be moving to an online sale of passes probably within the next few days also. The staff need to get that process up and running. We have that program. We just need to reconfigure a couple things before we put it out on the internet to make it go live. But one of the things that the state does want us to see is not to see, they want us to basically do work, these transactions online, not to have a paper process at the beach. But I know people are anxious to purchase passes, and they're anxious to get to the beach. So the staff will work together over the next couple of days to make sure we have a process that we believe is safe, and we'll begin to sell those passes. So that's a quick summary of the plan. The staff is very energized, and like I said, over the weekend we did a lot of work. The stands have been set up. The pathways have been put in. There's been a lot of cleanup. Sun shade structures have been installed. And on the back end, the HR department has started to contact the workers for the summer. So we do have a pool of people coming, returning, as well as some new people. So I think we can be ready to go and open up on Saturday.
Mr. Brown, great job. Now, what I'm going to ask, could you email this presentation to Councilors Santos and Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia.
So we can review this. We're going to go back. I'm going to ask you to go back. We're going to review it a slide at a time. I think this is fantastic. What I was just able to see and go through, obviously you've been putting a lot of work into this, and it certainly looks like a great start. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is just the start. This is going to change. It's going to get tweaked. It's going to get adjusted accordingly. But I think it's a great start. And I think to be able to open up all these beaches, especially with the amount of resident parking that we're going to be affording our residents is fantastic. So Councilor Flynn, if there'd be an email to you, will you be able to see them?
Yes.
Councilor Santos, they'll be emailed to you. And then I'm going to ask the town administrator, once you're in receipt of them, if we can go back and start again, Mr. Brown, and go through the slides. And then if anybody has any questions. But again, this is, I think this is a great job and it doesn't surprise me, the job that he did. This is a fantastic start for us with this. And I think he has obviously put a lot of time into this. So let's go back and let's review it. Let's not over critique it, over analyze it, because it's moving. If you got some serious concerns, we'll go through them. Councilor Santos, let me know when you get it. Councilor Flynn,
Don't worry about me. Let the other councilors go ahead of me. I don't mind.
No. I'm not saying talking, Councilor Santos. I'm saying let me know when you're in receipt of the email.
All right. I'm in receipt. Go ahead.
You have it, Councilor Flynn. Do you have it?
I do, and it actually popped up on my phone. Wendy must have toggled it. So thank you, Wendy.
Okay, well, as long as we got it toggled to you, how you got it, but everybody's in receipt of it, right? Okay, let's go to the first page. I believe that was a campground. Okay. I think this is great. And having sat in on a lot of the meetings with Mr. Brown and the concerns that there have been for COVID, especially across the state, I think this is a great start for the campground. Does anybody have any problems now with this? Now I can see Councilor Von Villas, I can see the Vice President, I can see Councilor Flynn. I can't see Councilor Lombardi, so just shout out Councilor Toronto. I can't see you anymore when this is up, so just shout out. I mean, does anybody have any problems with the opening of the campground like this, tentatively to get us going?
Mr. President,
Councilor Flynn.
is that a shout out?
That's a shout out. I can see you, Councilor Flynn. I just told you.
Oh, okay. So I guess my only comment is that you're doing a straight proration. And, you know, we do not have full facilities for the campers. And I'm not sure that it's competitive to other campgrounds.
Council Flynn, I can tell you one thing. We have a long list of people that want to go in there. And our campground, as far as I'm concerned, there's not a lot of competition compared to our pristine campground and where it sits. I have no
So-
problem with this, and I think we need the revenue, Council Flynn. This can't be a giveaway for everybody.
I'm not arguing that. I'm looking for all 20 spots to be filled.
Well, he'll fill the 20 spots with this.
Perfect.
Anybody else have any comments about this?
Mr. President, it's Dennis.
Dennis, go right ahead, Council Toronto.
One was asked by a campground resident that because there's going to be limited spaces, sometimes they have to move their camper from where it is today to another facility, but not actually occupy it, say in Middletown. So they were looking for the ability to move their camper into the campground, but not occupy it if there wasn't enough space.
No, absolutely. No, I think that'd be a big mistake on that. But again, it's just me. I think that'd be a big mistake.
That was just a question that was posed to me.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, can I
Vice
jump in?
President, Vice President.
So, thank you, Bob. So, as you said, it's fluid, which we all realize. I think that, you know, as the CDC guidelines potentially change, would we be open to adding more seasonal campers, or is 20 the limit for the season?
No, I think the way, you know, I think we're starting off with approximately 20 spaces. Once we know what those 20, spots are, and we can see how big those campers are, we would definitely look at adding more, you know, as long as we have the proper spacing between the units.
Okay. What about the bathrooms?
The Department of Business Regulation won't allow us to open the bathrooms as of now.
Okay. So they'll have to use the campus as self-contained with showers and bathrooms. They have the ability to empty their waste.
Correct.
Okay. And you said no visitors, right? At this point.
I believe the current regulation restricts visitors right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Council Flynn.
So I wanted to go back to, and not that I disagree that, especially if there's a liability issue with having campers in before the people, if I understood the question, but some storage places, like they're on contract, and I think some of the campers are already past their point, and people are waiting for them to get moved. I think that might have been the motivation there.
I think the whole locating the campers within the campground is something that the campers have historically worked out with the campground manager. So I would just continue with that. I think this probably isn't the right forum to address it. I think there's a process that they already use to address this, getting the campers into the campground. So my suggestion would be to not be literal in looking at this, but, you know, we have an opening date of February 12th. Let the campground manager work with the campers to get the campers in so that they can move, you know, whether the camper's there a day or two or a week beforehand, you know, their unit is there so they can start living there on June 12th.
I'm sure they'll be able to work that out. I think, again, you know, from the altitude that we're at, I think this is a solid plan for the campground myself.
Yeah, you just gotta remember that these things don't take just a day or two to set up, some of them, you know?
No, and it's my understanding, and again, a number of these units are stored with you know, at a couple different locations nearby. And those people that are responsible for the storage will actually move the units to the campground before the 12th, so that when people get here, you know, they're able to move into the campers immediately. And again, I think this is a detail that the campground manager can work out with the campers.
Okay.
And I think that's what's happened historically, so.
Counselor Flynn.
Do you know, Mr. Brown, if we have 20 contracts right now for the campground?
I believe we do, yes.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'm getting the feel we're pretty much in agreement with this slide. And again, it's the start. It's the opening. It's a start. It's for us to get open and going. Next slide, Mr. Brown.
The next program is the mooring program.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any questions about this? This is kind of self-explained.
Mr. Brown.
Council Lombardi.
Sean, how many, obviously, I don't know if they're all sold yet or they're all leased. How many non-resident mooring patrons are we going to allow?
I believe there's only 7, roughly.
Out of how many moorings?
45, 50.
Okay. All right, I'll wait until you talk about the boat ramp for my next question.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else have any questions in regards to this slide? Councilor Flynn?
Yes,
No? No, you weren't waving? Okay.
Mr.
Councilor
President,
Santos. Councilor
do we
Santos.
have a harbor master on board?
We do.
All right. Steve Pont?
No, Mr. Pont has retired.
Okay. And-
I know his first name. His first name is Stu. Stu was
Okay.
the assistant harbor master last year, and I'm embarrassed.
Right.
I don't know his last name.
Stu Brayman.
Raymond, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions about this slide? Okay, next slide, Mr. Brown.
I have a question, Bob.
Vice President.
So Sean, non-resident mooring patrons may purchase a non-resident parking pass. So even though we want it just for residents, we're allowing non-residents.
Well, you have the moorings. I mean, at some point, we need to accommodate the non-resident mooring people in the lot. That lot holds, you know, at 100% would hold 150 cars. We're currently going to limit that to 80. So, you know, based on the social distancing, we're not going to lose a resident's not going to lose an opportunity to go to the beach immediately. So there isn't an immediate conflict.
So that, Bobby, that gives them the opportunity to use the beach as well. That's what you're saying, right?
We would ask them if they're using the lot to, you know, it would have to be for the purposes of their mooring.
Can we give them, can we give an authorization letter or something to go along with, that they could produce?
That's what I would want to do. Yes.
Yeah, and the other reason I bring it up is because if Second Beach is full, you know, the overflow, if they don't want to wait in line and there's available spots at Third Beach, residents can go there. And I don't want those spots taken up. I know it's only 7, but it's 7 residents, potential resident spots taken up by someone that doesn't live here.
Mr. President.
Again, if they come in and they're identified as a mooring holder, they would occupy a space. We're not going to lose a space as long as they identify themselves as a mooring owner. So we would have the 80 spaces at the boat ramp parking lot, and then set aside will be a number of spaces for mooring patrons. So it won't only be, you not only have mooring patrons that are non-residents, but you're gonna have other mooring patrons that are residents. So they'll be parking too, but the goal would be not to count them towards the beach number, so that, because they're not going to affect the density calculation.
Right, so you said they're set aside. How long are they set aside for?
If you're out on your boat, you could leave and you could sail off for the day. So the car could be there for an extended period of time.
Oh, I thought you meant before they got, okay. I thought you meant you're saving X amount of spots for mooring people.
No, because again, you've got 150 slots in the parking lot. 80 are going to be set aside for bathers. So you have that extra capacity to set aside the mooring, resident or non-resident patrons. They go off on their boat. It doesn't count towards the beach density.
Okay.
Council Lombardi.
So I guess, Sean, this is going to dovetail to my next question about the boat ramps. I might as well just get it out there right now. As we're talking about non-resident moorings and people who are going to come in and want to launch their boats, I want to say that, and I mentioned this to you privately, I want to say that maybe if we look at non-residents, we look at Aquidneck Island residents and limit it to Aquidneck Island, Middletown, Portsmouth, and Newport, when we're talking about non-residents. I mean, that's how I see this. I think it'd be nice to be able to, if we're going to open it to non-residents, that we opened up to our neighbors first. And if we lease out moorings, it will be the same thing. And when we allow boat trailers in, it would be the same thing. I'm going to be honest, be blunt. I don't want to see Massachusetts trailers in that parking lot. To be honest with you, I'd rather see us open it up to the people who live on the island. If we're going to open it up to non-residents, that's what we should be doing.
I think that, Council Lombardi, let me just point something out. I think it's from this slide, from my perspective, in this point in time, this is just for non-resident mooring patrons.
Yeah, but Bob, it's the same thing if a guy wants to launch his boat.
Actually, so right now I have the boat ramp. I neglected to put it in the slides, but right now, if we follow the logic of the slides, the only people accessing the boat ramp are residents.
What about the guy who's got a mooring that wants to put an inflatable in it? He's got to trailer it in. If he's got a boat, if he's got a mooring, maybe that's how he gets out to his boat on the mooring. I mean, we've got people who live on this island at Middletown.
I think that's part. Isn't that part of that first portion of this, Mr. Brown, that the non-resident mooring patrons may purchase a non-resident parking pass and access to the third beach parking area? Isn't that part of it? If we give them an authorization letter to go along with their non-residents parking pass, then they'd be able to get in there to launch the boat. But it's just for the ones that have moorings, that they're paying for the moorings.
My point is, Bob, I don't want to see us leasing out moorings to people from out of state getting non-resident passes. We should be accommodating the people who live on this island first. If we're going to reach out to non-residents, then that's where we should be going. I mean, that's just how I see it.
Yeah, but you're talking about a mooring, correct?
Same thing, Bob. If a guy from New Bedford wants to lease a mooring, I don't see why we should be doing that. If we should be opening that mooring field up, if we're going to open up 7 non-resident moorings, they should be opened up first to Newport and Portsmouth residents. If we're going to open it up to any non-residents, should be people from the island first.
And they pay a non-resident pass.
They are non-residents. They're from Middletown. They're from Newport and Portsmouth.
Okay.
That's all. And if we
I don't have
can't
a
lease
problem
them,
with that.
then you open it up to somebody else. But give the island residents a preference.
Okay. Mr. Brown, I mean, you know, I know we're getting down into the weeds, but is there any way that you can come up with I see you, Vice President, I'll get to you in a minute. Any way that you can, I mean, we only have so many moorings down there, correct?
Correct.
And primarily, they're all leased out, correct?
Yes.
So if we only have X amount of non-resident mooring patrons now, then that would be the head count until they're replaced at a later time.
Are they all leased right now?
I believe there might be one or two that will be leased out to people from the list.
There's probably people who are already,
Wait a minute, Mr. Toronto. I got the Vice President ahead of you. Okay, Vice President, go ahead.
Thank you, Bob. So, Sean, do we have to lease to non-residents as well, or can we lease to just residents?
We have an ordinance that does distribute moorings to residents and non-residents. And I think before I answer that question, I probably just want to review it with the solicitor. I know there are some maritime issues that are associated with resident and non-resident lease programs, but I'm not positive they apply to Third Beach Harbor. So,
And Mr. Brown, I was just gonna say that because I think we do have restrictions on that as well, right? I mean, meaning we can't restrict it because of the moorings are obviously not on land, they're located out in the water.
correct. And I hear what we're talking about. I think it would just be something better if I can take this back and meet with the solicitor and come back with an answer.
Okay, but for tonight's purposes, I want to bring up any showstoppers. If you guys have any showstoppers, because I'd like to be able to move forward with this somehow tonight so we can vote on opening these beaches up. Is there any showstoppers on this slide, the mooring slide, for tonight?
No.
Okay.
Terry has her hand up, Bob. I don't think you can see her.
I can't see it. Go ahead, Councilor Flynn.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. So may or may not be a showstopper. I'm just curious about, and residents have emailed in about the parking availability for all the moorings that are rented.
I thought Mr. Brown just answered that question. Mr. Brown?
So there's approximately 150 parking spaces in the Third Beach parking lot. 80 of those parking places will be used for bathers. And then basically with the remaining 70 spaces, we'll be able to accommodate people that have moorings. They're gonna, basically park, they're gonna get in their boat, they're not gonna be on the beach. So
Okay.
we can get them to their moorings without affecting the number of people utilizing the beach.
Thank you.
Is there anybody, I can see Councilor Toronto, I can see the Vice President, I can see Councilor Flynn, Councilor Lombardi, you all set? Councilor Von Villas, you all set?
I'm good.
Okay, Councilor Von Villas, you good with this slide?
Yep.
Councilor Santos, are you good with this?
Yes, I am. Thank
ma'am.
you.
Okay, next slide. Kayak racks. Does anybody have any issues with the presentation by the town administrator to start the season with the kayak racks? Vice President.
So every time I see the word non-resident, I have a question. So I thought this was gonna be for residents, not non-residents.
The only non-resident that would be using the kayak rack is someone who has a mooring and they use a dinghy to get to their boat.
Okay.
Okay, and again, a start. We can tweak it again at different times. Next slide. Okay, let's go through this slide. Vice President.
Did we miss it? Was there a slide for the resident lot at Third Beach?
It's on the next slide.
Next slide.
It's after Second Beach.
Sorry, I thought it was earlier. So one of the things I have, oh, we're gonna just go slide by slide. We're not doing overall Second Beach, is that right?
Yeah, just slide by side.
No, nothing here.
Does anybody have any on this slide they'd like to mention? Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the third beach, town beach.
Better known as the Navy lot, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions in regards to this slide? This takes in the boat ramp again, Rick, Council Lombardi, see?
I get it. Thanks, Bob.
President, this is Dennis.
Council Toronto, go ahead.
I apologize. I do have one question on the previous slide.
Okay, let's back it up. Can we back the slide up, please? Okay, there you go.
The number of lifeguard chairs. You know, we call it no man's land at the beach, which is between the Rock and the furthest east lifeguard stand. And I know in the past we've talked about that area and we put signs up, swim at your own risk, it's unguarded and so on. What is, do we have consideration for that during these times?
Mr. Brown?
It's called no man's land. It's unguarded. I think historically it's been seen as not a desirable area to swim, as well as a more dangerous area to swim. It's also not serviced by the parking lot. I think that's something that we could look at after we get up and running. Again, like I said, I mean, if you sort of look at the nature of Second Beach, the east side down by the Plovers is, you know, we basically, that's where we have the erosion. And, you know, where the beach is growing a little bit is towards the western side. So I think that's something that we can look at once we can see how well we can manage the 8 chairs that are going to be on the beach this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah, it was just brought to my attention, you know, that is one area that gets a lot of people down there. We know that's one of the areas where they go and they know they're not being watched, and they know that they get away with more down there. It is probably one of the higher surf areas that we have. I think that's where, if we had any problems in the ocean, that's where it is, not down by the first, you know, the Tower 1 and 2. That seems to always be more of a calm area for kids. So Sean, I appreciate you putting it on your radar, and I just think it's something that we've kind of shied away from over the years, and I think we need to kind of step up and address it.
Vice President.
Sean, I'd like to address staffing as I look at the lifeguard chairs. How are those lifeguard chairs going to be staffed?
Each chair will have 2 lifeguards. The lifeguard chair at Surfer's End typically has 3 or 4 lifeguards, depending on the crowd.
So if we're going to be in line with the current social distancing, 2 aren't going to be able to sit on the same chair.
That's correct, and that's something that they'll have to work out. I had spoken to the solicitor earlier today. There are beaches that actually put plexiglass between the lifeguards. I spoke to another beach today where the one lifeguard sits on the chair, someone sits lower, and then other beaches have one lifeguard on the chair and someone on the beach itself. So we have Mike McGordy down at the beach, who's been down there for a number of years, and he's going to have to come up with a protocol that creates the necessary separation.
Does if there's one up top and one below, does that pose a liability for us? Because when you're up top, you have a more broader view of if anybody's in trouble versus kind of a level standing there to the ocean, you know?
Yep, I'll ask that question of Mike.
Okay.
And just so everyone understands, I mean, so obviously we're regulated by Department of Health with the operation of the lifeguards, but we're also evaluated by the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust, who insures us. So they have standards that they publish also. So I'll look into both of those.
All right, thank you. I was just thinking that's why maybe they put the plexiglass so they can see out more. They'll both have the same kind of view.
Nope, absolutely. Yep.
Mr. President,
Council Santos.
my question is directed to Mr. Brown. Regarding the Navy Lot Beach, that's going to be open only to Middletown residents, correct?
Correct.
At what cost, please?
Depends. So $75 for a non-senior resident and
65.
Okay, senior
65
pass
for
is
senior.
65. Okay. All right, fine. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Council Toronto, just to follow up on what you mentioned and what the Vice President mentioned, I talked to somebody in regards to what they're doing at their beaches as well. I think Mr. Brown might have been on the call at the same time. And what they're gonna do, they're gonna have one in the lifeguard stand and one walking the water line down front. And then
Sure.
they swap off back and forth.
I think if they-
Council Flynn.
So I just wanted to throw in there while we were talking about Second Beach that a resident did email in that that's the safest beach for our seniors to access, probably because it's in good shape. They have the mats, it's relatively flat, and they were inquiring about reserved spaces for seniors on Second Beach. Is that something that could be done this season?
Council Flynn, I'll tell you, we've discussed this for 20 years. You know, right now, I don't see how we could do it, especially this season. Maybe something in the future down the road. But I think once again, let's get the beaches open. Let's get them going. Let's see how it works out and how it progresses along.
I think, Mr. President, I don't think it's parking lots. I think she's talking about space on the beach. Is that accurate, Mrs. Flynn?
I couldn't really hear you, Mr. Brown. I'm sorry.
You're talking the parking
about
space?
on the beach itself, not space in the parking lot, I think.
No, I think space in the parking lot. I think they were inquiring to have reserved spaces in the parking lot, unless I misread it. So that they can park close to the entrances.
Okay.
Vice President.
So Sean, on this slide, it says 50% of the space in the main lot will be reserved for Middletown residents. So how do we know we're going to be able to achieve that? Is one side going to be for residents and one side for non-residents? I don't know how we're going to be able to determine that 50% based upon who's coming in and who's first come, first served basis. So, I mean, I want to make sure we do that the best of our ability. So I think maybe one side of the lot should be for residents, so we can determine that very easily.
Yep. That was one of the discussions that I ended the day with the staff. So what I'd like to do is for the next meeting, I can give you the details on how they're going to achieve that count. But I don't have the answer tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, 1 minute, Mr. Santos. Maybe a good idea would be is to split it up inside into two smaller separate areas to park the cars. And then if there's any overflow, we'll give it to the residents to overflow into the non-residents.
Exactly.
If we have to divide it up into 50-50, I'm going to throw a number out there. Let's say 400 parking spaces. 200 be designated for residents, 200 for non-residents. But if there's an overflow of non-residents, we'll let the non-residents slide over. I mean, the residents slide over into the non-residents. Our primary goal is to take care of our residents.
I kind of like it when we think alike.
I will have the procedure to you.
Mr. Brown, I'm sure you'll take care of that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Councilor Santos, go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Brown, you're referring to staff and on all your discussion. Do we have a beach manager?
We do. We did hire a beach manager and he started today. Or
Okay.
Monday. Today, yeah, today's Monday. So I apologize. Yes, he's on board.
Are we going to know who it is?
His name is Chris Parati. He's a Middletown resident.
Good.
And has a son who's at Middletown High School.
Okay.
He has a lot of experience dealing with parking and event
All right.
management, and I think he will do very well down there.
Okay, good. That's good to hear that he's a Middletown resident. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Santos. Council Flynn.
Mr. Brown, is there anticipated to be a separate entrance for residents versus non-residents, or is it all one line?
I will update the council on that as we figure out how to account for the split between the parking.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Brown, my suggestion would be to have one entrance. You're not having that many cars going in there. Don't forget, we're still under the COVID-19. We're not putting 12 or 1,400 cars in a parking lot. So my suggestion would be you're going to get a more accurate count of the cars going in there with one line.
Got it.
Mr. President, one other question.
Council Santos.
Mr. Brown, on one of the slides, you have beaches, 2020 pass sale process. The last line says online sale of passes will be announced shortly. In regards to that, you're going to apply for it online, but where will you pick up your pass? I got 2 calls on that today.
We'll have that process out to residents as soon as it's defined, but I would have them pick up the pass at the beach. That would be my preference, but we'll finalize that in the upcoming days.
They apply online and pick up the pass at the beach?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
The slide was out today already?
I don't know. Somebody was asking, and you know who it is.
A lot of information goes out. Okay.
I know.
Anybody got any more problems on this slide?
No.
All right, let's go to the next slide. Third beach. What do we got for showstoppers here? Vice President, you're scratching your head. Go ahead.
You're on mute, Paul.
You got to unmute.
Sorry. I was trying to get your attention to the previous slide.
You want to go back a slide?
How are we going to staff? It's fine. How are you going to staff? What's the staffing for the beach? The second beach. How are we staffing this? You said lifeguards. How many lifeguards? How many beach kids? Are there gate attendants? How is this working?
I can provide a detailed schedule of that, but generally, as we look at a lifeguard chair, there would be 2 lifeguards. There would be 1 crew member assigned to the area. We need to have, we don't need a whole contingency of kids at the gate, essentially, because we're just going to count those cars in. So there might be 1 person at each gate. And we have the beach manager, we have a business manager, we have the lifeguard manager, and there'll be a few bodies at a senior level that will help round out the hours that are necessary so that people can work a normal 40-hour week. What I can do is get this schedule to you because part of it's based on, there's 1 beach manager, but when we look at the number of beach kids, we calculate the number of labor hours that we need to fill. So there's not an actual head count, but a number of labor hours that we work towards. But I'll get that to the council.
Porta Johns, and who maintains those based on the CDC regulations?
The Porta Johns would be provided by our vendor, which is Hallman Septic. They right now would be scheduled to do 2 deep cleaning / disinfections a day. once first thing in the morning, once midday. And then the crew members would be responsible for servicing the porta potties. Basically, we would need to wipe down or disinfect the high contact areas every 30 minutes.
And who's gonna do that?
The crew, the staff that are assigned to the crew.
Okay. What about showers? So I know that the shower area, you know, based on our guidelines, our new guidelines, I think there's 3 or 4 showers in the shower area by the concession stand. So how's that gonna work, and how is it gonna work on showers in the parking lot?
I have email into DEM. Outdoor showers are allowed. Our showers are, unfortunately, there's multiple heads that are within 6 feet of each other. So we would reduce the number of heads at each shower so that we can create the proper distancing.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, anyone else like to make any comments in regards to this slide?
No.
Okay, next slide. I think this slide kind of speaks for itself. This is it's a formula. Hopefully it's gonna increase as we move forward. Vice President.
Sean, so, I mean, I get the numbers here with the parking, by lot. But how do we manage the number of walk-ons? I heard you say we're using 80-20, so 20%, whether it's walk-on, hotel shuttle, Uber, whatever it is. And I'm sure, I guess, I don't know, where do you get that 20% number from? Just curious, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I don't know. And how many people per lifeguard area, and how do we monitor that?
Yep. So the 80-20 basically comes from our best guesstimate. The state was using a 15% walk-on. Based on the number of people that we've seen down at Third Beach, we increased that up to 20%. And I think generally we have a good area where people do walk and bike to the beach. So that's a number that we're going to need to monitor to see how accurate it is. I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me. Basically, so per lifeguard chair at Third Beach, we're estimating roughly 156 people per lifeguard chair. And at Second Beach, we're estimating 221 people per lifeguard chair. And we're going to have to monitor that. I think, you know, there's a number of variables there. We're starting off with this number. I think we need to look at the solicitors has been talking to me about this, the number of people that, you know, basically come in groups, you know, how large the group sizes are, you know, are there 2 people, 4 people together? So I think for the first couple weeks in June here, we just need to look and see, you know, what we're going to have to do a little bit of investigation to fine tune these numbers, you know, so that they reflect the people that are coming to our own beach. So if it's mostly, you know, 2 kids coming down to the beach, we can adjust the numbers, you know, so if it's groups of 2, you're going to have more groups that you have to account for. But if it's a family of 6, they're going to be more congested and there'll be more space available for other groups. So I think there's a little bit of art that's going to happen right now as we look at the next few weeks. And, you know, I know there are a lot of people that are concerned that we waited till June 6th to open. Easton's Beach is opening up the same day. Only a fraction of the state beaches are open. So I mean, I think we're opening with everybody else, and I think, and Bob knows this from being on a number of the calls with different groups from the state. The beach calls are happening on a weekly basis, so I think everybody's comparing experience and numbers. So I'm hoping within a few weeks, we'll be able to dial in and understand how Second Beach works and how we can tune these numbers better and hopefully get more people on the beach.
Good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Okay, is that the last slide?
It is.
Nope,
Vice President.
one more.
So Sean, is there a reason you chose 9 AM? Because I think that's too late. My own opinion, I think it should be 8 to 4, like it normally was. To 4, it's free till 9 o'clock when they're locked up. I just think 9's too late, especially on the weekends.
We can look at that and maybe change it so that we have different hours on the weekend. I think in looking at it, so part of it's trying to control cost, just because we're going from an 8-hour day to a 9-hour day. And there's not a lot of demand in the morning, but to your point, maybe that's something that we adjust for the peak days of the beach, is go from 8 to 5 or 8 to, have a longer day those days, is plan on that. So I'll review that if that's acceptable.
It
I just think it should be the same time consistently every day, holidays, everything, 8 to 4. We never charged after 5. After
5, yeah, 5 o'clock,
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
People get out of work and, maybe people that can go down and enjoy the beach for the night.
There's something can be tweaked as we go.
I want to go now.
It's impossible. A question, Mr. President.
Council Santos.
The concessionaire, is he going to mark the boards similar to what the grocery stores have, 6 feet
They'll have
apart?
to. They have to be in line with every one of those CDC and safe.
Can they do it? Actually do it, sir?
Why can't they?
That
Put a piece of
isn't
tape
ri-
down on the
Yeah, I
ground.
know, but are they wide enough? Is it big enough?
They're gonna have to make sure they're 6 feet apart, the patrons.
Okay, all right.
The bottom line is the bottom line. I don't
Okay.
want to rush us through this. We have other docket items. And
Okay.
we have
Thank you.
a clerk and a deputy clerk that has to be back at 5 o'clock tomorrow
I
morning.
know. Okay, I'm
Okay,
done asking
We're-
questions.
We're closing in on 10 o'clock right now.
That's right.
This is
9:47.
a serious thing. I don't care if we talk about this at 10:30. Except that, let's just, the little mundane issues, I think later on, Mr. Brown can work these out, or we're gonna be hearing from residents, unless they're gonna, stop calling us or stop emailing us, which I don't think is gonna happen.
No,
And
that's for sure.
so it'll be tweaked as we go. And we don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, God forbid if they turn around and something drastic happens and they pull a state of emergency again and they force us to close the beach. I mean, crazy things could happen. We're looking at this in a favorable manner. We're looking at this, enthusiastically, that we're opening our beaches up, but they're not gonna be the same. I mean, obviously, by these slides, they're not gonna be the same. Okay,
Mr. President,
Councilor Von Villis.
I haven't seen anything that refers to masks in any way. Do we have any regulations that we're putting in place regarding masks?
There are a set of rules that the police chief and Mr. Cronin are putting together. And those will be issued with the beach applications for the seasonal passes, and they'll be posted on the beach. But we'll follow the guidelines that are issued by the state of Rhode Island and the CDC as the standard as we go along.
Okay, any other questions? Vice President?
I'm stuck on the 9 to 8. What's the difference whether it's 9 to 5 or 8 to 4?
I don't have a problem.
9's too late.
Okay,
8 it is.
8
Thank you
o'clock.
very much.
Do it at 8 o'clock.
I like to
How
keep
easy that was?
safe and easy.
Easy. All right, I'm gonna make a motion, okay? I'm gonna make a motion, we accept the recommendation from the town administrator to open our campground and beaches with the exception of the operation beach hours will be 8 AM to 4 PM instead of 9 AM to 5 PM. And that we continually critique it, monitor it, and Mr. Brown will keep us up to date and up to speed with what's going on as we go through this. So I think the most important thing is that we get this opened. Vice President.
Discussion. So Karen's notifying me that we have several people that want to talk. But my final question, I hope it's my final question is, Sean, probably not. It's Sean, any idea where, based on the numbers, and I know it's difficult to tell and how things will change, where that puts us financially? Are we break even? Are we losing money? I mean, what's the breakdown at this point? Have you gotten that far?
Yeah, so we're in the process of pulling the budget together right now. If I just look at the fees from the daily parking we're losing, we're probably, we're in the ballpark of $300,000 in the hole. That would be my guesstimate right now. It is much different than running the beaches we typically do. But I think, this is one of those scenarios where we do have some reserves that we can run the beach with during this extraordinary event. And, I think we remain hopeful that, there'll be an advance medically to either find a treatment or a vaccination for COVID. And we're going to be able to operate with some sort of beach season that, will be appreciated by the residents. It's something the residents wants, to have that experience. So I think this is sort of a different kind of decision that we're making. We're making a community-oriented decision, not necessarily a business decision. My goal would be to try to keep it, at that level, operating with a $200,000 or $300,000 loss for the season. That's sort of what we're working towards. But I think we'll have those details better worked out when the finance office finishes up the budget this week with the changes that you're approving tonight.
That's with the current fee schedule.
Correct.
I'll tell you, for us to be able to provide our residents with the opportunity to go to their beaches and to provide the visitors with an opportunity to go to our beaches, if we only come out of it with $200,000 or $300,000 in the red, it'll be, I don't think it'll be a bad season for us, having gone through what we've gone through and realizing that what we're going through and what other people are going through and the position that we're in compared to a lot of communities. Again, not by chance, by design. We're in good shape for this, going into this.
No, and I just want to stress, we do have reserves in the beach fund, to fund, basically the off year, the extraordinary year. So I want to be really clear on that. It's not, we have there's a good financial plan here.
Okay, so we have some people that want to talk. Okay, let's line them up.
Mary Lavin.
Yes. Mary Lavin, Mary, name and address, please.
Hi, 3 Maidford River Road, Middletown.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for addressing these issues. I think it's a difficult time. I have 2 comments. I think having more porta-johns is more hazardous to the health than having the bigger bathrooms opened at the main stand, because what we know about the virus is that it collects in small places. And so the porta-johns to me are more troublesome. That's number one. And number two is I do not understand why cars need to be parked 6 feet away. Everywhere else in town, they're parked right next to each other at Shaw's grocery store, at BJ's. You wait in your car till the next person's out and then you get out. It has nothing to do with how far away they are. It's how many you want in the parking lot. But I don't think you need to reline or respace or have that much distance between the cars.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Next person.
Colleen, Bob?
Colleen, name and address, please.
Colleen Murphy, 5 Collins Terrace. I think Sean did a great job on this. I'm glad that it's going to be open. My only question, and I'm assuming it's going to take place, if it's going to be online for the season tickets, I'm presuming that all the controls are still going to be in place that have been in place in the past.
Correct. There will be controls in place.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Chris Spate, Bob.
Chris, name and address, please.
Muted.
Chris?
Gotta unmute.
Chris, you gotta unmute yourself. There you go. Go ahead, Chris.
I used to, Chris Spate, 63 James Court, Portsmouth, but again, Middletown taxpayer as well, one of those lucky individuals. First of all, I want to say, Sean, you did a phenomenal job. I totally appreciate it. And I've been one of the people that's probably been a pain in your neck throwing you in information, but this is absolutely fantastic. Just a couple of things. Paul, I think when you were saying about being able to have 2 people in a tower, when I talked with Christine Wilbright, who's one of the captains, and Mike McGorty before, just like I think Bob was saying, that there would probably be 1 person in the tower, 1 person kind of doing social distancing and being able to police that where necessary. You could set 2 people in the tower as long as the person on the platform was like on the right-hand side, the person that was in the chair was on the left-hand side. Second, Paul, what you were asking about, opening up at 8, what we've done in the past is we had 4 people that would actually come in at 8 o'clock. It'd be 1 person on the left-hand side, which would be Tower 1, but I know with the piping, I guess it's Clovers. We're going to be moving a little bit to probably 1 tower down to the right. 1 person on the left, 1 person on the right side, which I think is going to be Tower 8, 1 person over at Third Beach, 1 person at the Rock, and then usually you would have one of the captains in. I mean, if you wanted to go, and then everybody else would come in at 10. And but if you wanted to do 9 to 5, I'm with you on the 8 to 4. I was just talking to my wife who was going to the beach, and I think what we would end up with is like you see at Scarborough, where people just line up on 1A trying to wait to get into the beach, but 8 has never seemed to be a problem. But anyway, again, that's it from me. You did a fantastic job, and I totally appreciate being able to come back to the beach lifeguard in the summer.
Okay, we have anybody else?
Thanks, Chris.
Susan Eunice?
Susan, name and address, please.
Susan Eunice, 418 Walcott Ave, Middletown. Can you please define for us what is considered a Middletown resident?
A person that resides in the town of Middletown.
So if you're an out-of-state homeowner and you pay taxes in the town of Middletown, you would not be considered a Middletown resident?
You're a taxpayer.
You're a taxpayer that way, yeah. You're not a resident.
No, but.
So again, we pay taxes in the state of Middletown because we have a second home here, and we probably are here 50 to 60% of the time. We contribute to the economy. We frequent restaurants, stores, and everything else. We would not be considered a Middletown resident for the purpose of beaches.
Mr. Solicitor.
Where is the automobile registered?
In
Peter,
Massachusetts.
well, one at a time. Mr. Solicitor.
I'm just gonna check with Mr. Brown. I know that we've had a more restrictive definition when it comes to full-time Middletown residents for tax breaks, but for beach passes, I'm not sure. I think if you owned property in Middletown as a second home, I think you were eligible for a resident parking pass, but Mr. Brown can correct me on that.
So you can produce a tax bill.
So maybe, Mrs. Eunice, if you could call my office tomorrow, I can grab the form that we use to issue the passes and I can make sure it's clarified for you.
Well, I can tell you the last 5 years, I've always received a Middletown resident pass.
Then
There shouldn't
nothing,
be a problem.
then it's not a problem. Nothing's changing in that regard.
Great. Thank you so much.
Vice President.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same understanding. I think if, you know, there's two different things here you're talking about, whether you're a full-time resident, you're a tax, or you're a second homeowner here. If you pay taxes, you should be able to get a resident sticker. I think that's the way it's always
And
been.
apparently that's not going to change.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, Beth.
Say good evening to the council, and I'd just like to say.
Beth, name and address, please.
My name is David Rushlow at 32 Ellery Avenue. My first thing is I'd like to commend the police for the job that they've done down here, controlling the people coming in and keeping them from parking around in the area and everything. And they did a great job. And I just like to commend them for it because I know people were giving them a tough time and everything like that. They deserve a lot of credit. Secondly, I'd like to thank you people tonight for making that decision to have residents only for Surfers End. It means a lot to all the guys I surf with and everything like that. And I'd like to thank you again so much for doing that. It's much appreciated. The only question I have is like across from Surfers End in parking lot B and then the grass knoll going up to St. George's, is that going to be closed down or is that going to be open?
That would remain closed until a future date when some of the restrictions are relaxed.
Okay, no, that's all I want to know, but I'd like to thank you very much again for all your hard work.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Anybody else?
That's
it? Okay, I have a motion that we move forward with the opening of the beaches and campground. The only thing that we would change and amend would be, from the recommendation of the town administrator, would be the hours. They would be 8 to 4 instead of 9 to 5.
Second.
Have a second. Any conversation? Hearing none. I'll go through the council. Council Von Villas.
Aye.
Council Toronto.
John, thanks for your hard work. Aye.
Council Santos.
Aye.
Council Lombardi.
Aye.
Council Flynn.
Aye, and I'd like to thank staff and all the residents who weighed in and participated. You're the best.
Vice President.
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. Nice job, Sean. Thank you. Okay, item number 14. Memorandum from myself, civic appropriations, request for Bike Newport.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Okay, a motion and second to receive. Any questions? Hearing none. Council Von Villas.
Aye.
Council Toronto.
Aye.
Council Santos.
Aye.
Council Lombardi.
Aye.
Council Flynn.
Aye.
Vice President.
Aye.
And affirmative for myself. Thank you. Item number 15. This is continued from May 18, 2020 regular meeting. Resolution of the council memorializing the General Assembly to enact legislation and authorizing the town of Middletown to issue not to exceed 5 million general obligation bonds, notes, and other evidence of indebtedness to finance acquiring and preserving open space and acquiring, preserving, restoring, and improving recreational areas in the town.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
We have a motion to pass. A second. Any conversation? Council Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please let me know if I warble off. So
Is that verbally or with the camera?
Yeah, either way, it's
Okay.
torture, trust me. So the open space bond referendum, Mr. President, you actually presented this at our March 2nd council
Mhm.
meeting.
Mhm.
And the town solicitor said the money would be used to purchase, conserve, and buy development rights.
Mhm.
Conservation facts were provided by the Aquidneck Land Trust in the packet.
Mhm.
And the one of the facts that I was interesting with that original packet was that, you know, prime, one of the reasons I think that you put this forward, that prime farmland is currently being appraised at approximately 85,000 an acre. So, and the bond proposal was put forth for $5 million to acquire and preserve open space. Now, tonight's proposal is not exactly the same. Tonight's proposal includes acquiring, preserving, restoring, and improving recreational areas in the town.
Mhm.
And I'm not opposed to recreational investment, but I'm more comfortable with a separate bond dedicated to recreation and not lumped in with conservation. I think citizens voting for open space may want a majority of the bond going to open space, and those who want recreation, you know, I think they might question the split. I think we learned correctly on March 2nd that land purchases are done in executive session. And, you know, with a bond that has two goals, it allows flexible spending that the citizens don't really have input on. So I'd recommend that if, you know, you want to research how much you might need for open space and how much you might be thinking for recreation, they should be two separate bond proposals and dedicated to that purpose. I'm not comfortable with a combined goal.
Okay, just to give you a little history. Over the years, we've gone into partnerships to acquire land, open space. And we go in with the land trust or several other entities to go in partnerships with. When we say recreation, it's majority of the time, these open space, we've made this request ourselves. This is how when we buy large purchases of land that we've set up lacrosse fields, a portion of it, or a soccer field, like we did on Wyatt Road. So that's a part of it, but this is giving us the availability to have this money available should we decide to do that. Upon deciding to buy a piece of property, that we'll entertain again a conversation. And I'm gonna let the solicitor kind of walk you through the process a little bit of how that happens and how we negotiate into these deals and why we would, as a council, want to decide on acquisitions of certain properties over other certain properties and what the needs are. Mr. Solicitor?
Mr. President, as you said, the purpose of this is to have the town be in a position, if an opportunity arises, to acquire a piece of property. So whether it's a farmland and it's the acquisition of development rights to allow that property to remain in agriculture, whether it's property that might be acquired for active or passive recreation, because whether it's walking trails or things of that sort, that it is encompassed within recreation and open space as well. So the idea here is as land becomes less and less available on the island, as the island gets more and more built out, that we have the capacity, if an opportunity presents itself, for the council, and the council can go through whatever public hearing process it desires to, but you have the ability to partner with other folks such as the land trust, et cetera, to be able to respond. Because if we don't have the capability at that point in time when an opportunity to presents itself, the process of going through the bonding, of getting it approved in a referendum, by the time you get through that process, it's going to be too late. And so the idea here is, once again, is to put the town in a position whether it's open space, whether it's active recreation, or whether it's passive recreation, to have the capacity to be able to go after an opportunity when one presents itself. And it is difficult not knowing what opportunities might be out there a year or two or more from now to know what the split might be, whether it's for open space or some other use. So this is designed to give the council the maximum flexibility to use those funds for any of those purposes. Because once again, you don't know what is coming down the road and when an opportunity to preserve a large parcel of land in town from development might present itself.
Does that help at all, Councilor Flynn?
Well, I think I understand the concept. You're looking for to set up pocket money that you can access for an opportunity that comes up. I don't think that has changed my position. I think if you want a pocket of be a separate bond and not in the same with open space. I think they should be dedicated. I'm not comfortable having both purposes in the same bond. Can we not have two bonds?
You can, but you're limiting, if you have one bond that's only for open space, you are limiting it to that purpose. And if an opportunity comes up, you handcuff yourself potentially down the road in the ability to respond to that. So the idea here was to provide the council with the most flexibility to make the right decision at that point in time, whether it's a pure open space, an agricultural property, or an active or passive recreation.
And I guess I'm not getting my question answered. Can you have two different bonds simultaneously?
I did answer it. Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. So that's what I would recommend. That's what I'm comfortable with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your position has been noted.
Perfect.
Okay, any other comments on this? We have a Councilor Toronto.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Regards to the bond, going out and very similar to what, we have a number of things that we want to, invest in Middletown, things we need to invest in. And open space is something I know we've had a concentrated effort on, and I know we have a lot of open space that we've acquired. And, when we had this bond, I also, I know it's for open space, it's $5 million, but, we're looking to pass a bond for $1 million to finish off the recreational spots. We're looking at, funding to do our senior housing. I'd like to see a bond that's passed so that we can maybe acquire properties or find ways to create affordable living. Versus just, we're so focused on, oh, we need open space. We're going to keep buying up this open space. How about if we acquire properties that we can maybe do some rent controls? Maybe we can incent people to help house seniors. I mean, can we pass a bond for something like that?
You can pass a bond for anything you want to pass it for.
Okay.
It's the availability of partnerships is what you have to look at.
Right. So, but we want to put $5 million in an account. So if a property comes up, we can buy it, but I don't see the energy on the other side. So, I mean, I got to do my homework a little bit more in regards to how much open space we've acquired. I know it's something that we're passionate about as a town. I can hear Mrs. Santos saying in my head right now, we don't have any more farms, we don't have any more space. And once we develop it, it's gone, but it has to be a balancing act. And, in regards to open space versus commercial versus residential. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to just put out there that I think we should be looking at affordable housing, low to moderate income jobs, and really focus on that. And I was thinking maybe we sell some of that open space that we do have to help fund those projects, rather than just keep passing bonds that we have to pay back. When we buy this land with a bond, we have to pay the bond back. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Vice President.
So, Dennis, I can feel the passion oozing out of you. However, anything we're going to do that at least I would support as far as buying property for affordable housing, we would already own that property. We would do it on the property we already own. For the most part, that would make sense. So I couldn't see us really going out for a bond for that. And the open space bonds, as far as they go, a lot of times you're buying the open space to create recreation. So it all falls, it's worded strategically like that, like Peter said, so that we have that flexibility. And so, I'm going to support that. I think that we've been very successful in the past, and I don't see any reason to change that at this point in time.
Can I respond to that?
Council Lombardi first. He's had his hand up, then back to you, Council Toronto. Council Lombardi.
So first of all, I support this concept. But the other piece of the affordable housing is, Dennis alluded to earlier how we're not meeting the 10%. There are a lot of communities in this state that are not meeting the 10%. And the key to affordable housing, particularly low to moderate income affordable housing, is density. And I'm going to be honest with you, when you're talking about density and the kind of density you're talking about, there's going to be a lot of people in this town that are not going to support a bond for that. And I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just telling you that when you start talking about conceptual plans for that kind of affordable housing, it's all about density, and just be cautious about that when you try to sell that kind of a bond to the people of this town.
Councilor Toronto.
I think Rick, just turn on the national news and see the issues we have across this country in regards to affordable housing and low to moderate income. And it's no different in Middletown. I thought, in Middletown feels the same, and we have the same issues as they have nationally. Unless we step up as a town and stop comparing ourselves to other communities in Rhode Island, I think Middletown has a long ways to go to help these folks who are low to moderate income or we're looking for housing. I've heard over the last year about how we have young families who can't afford to live here. I keep hearing about affordability of Middletown, and we want to pass a bond to acquire more open space. We have to pay the bond back. So we just have to figure out where we want to put our money. So I'm just saying, I hope that we start to consider on putting money or getting more bonds, because it seems like we can just get a bond anytime we want, and we'll pay it back if we decide to use it. But let's get a bond that's going to help our low to moderate income people and create affordable housing.
Council Lombardi.
First of all, I'm not comparing us to anyone else. There are a good majority of the communities in the state that are facing the same problem we're facing. And I'm going to challenge you to show me where you're going to put housing of that kind of density in Middletown. There's not much land out there to do that. Okay. I want you to show me where. I can think of a couple of places where nobody's going to want to put it there.
All right, gentlemen, I gave you some latitude. We went off on affordable housing.
Mr. President?
This docket item is not for affordable housing.
Right.
Councilor Flynn, let's stay on topic.
Okay, then then I will not make a comment on the affordable housing, which isn't just for low and moderate here in Middletown. Medium income people can't afford it either. I have a question from Paul, what you said about our open space bonds. We've been successful doing open space and recreation bonds as a combination before. So the bonds that we have for open space right now, are they open space and recreation? Or
I'd have Sean answer that, but I'm pretty sure the wording of the bond is in the past has been open space.
The same. They're all the same. Everyone's been the same.
Actually, we have one bond that's outstanding is open space only. And then we have another bond that's outstanding that is open space and recreation. I think just, since I'm talking, I'll just take 1 second. The language, the problem with the challenge of having something that says open space is the definition of open space, and that if you're buying, basically you buy it and it disappears. You don't get to use it for passive recreation or anything else. It's just farming. It becomes an open space parcel. And I think that's the primary reason. I think the solicitor covered it, where, if you don't have additional language, you really restrict your ability to use these large parcels in the future. So, but we do have a bond that has language that includes recreation, and we have one that includes only open space.
Do you know, Mr. Brown, of the one that has the combination language, open space and recreation, what the total amount of the bond was, and what we've used of it, if any, and what it was for, either open space or recreation?
Not while I sit here, but I know I've responded to the council several times recently about those accountings. I'll have the finance director give that to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Councilor Von Villas.
Aye.
Councilor Toronto.
I'm really torn. So this is so we can have $5 million sitting in an account.
Councilor Toronto.
We want
Yes or no? Councilor Toronto, I'm not hearing you. Okay. Negative. Councilor Santos.
Yes.
Councilor Lombardi.
Aye.
Councilor Flynn.
No.
Vice President.
Aye.
And I also vote in the affirmative. Resolution passes. Item number 16. Continued from March 16, 2020, regular meeting, and May 18, 2020. At the request of myself, resolution of the council, every Rhode Islander should be counted in 2020 census.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
Comment? Discussion?
Let me ask the question, Councilor Flynn. We have it seconded. Any conversation?
Oh, thank you. Sometimes you go right to vote. I just wanted to make sure I got my question in.
I didn't know. Go ahead.
So, Mr. President, I just would like you to explain the resolution paragraphs, the last two paragraphs, and why you're proposing these activities for the individual council members when our job is to set policy.
It was the resolution came in from the United States. It's Article 1 of the United States Constitution that requires that the census be conducted every 10 years to count the population. It came from the United States Census Bureau asking us to support this to help him get an accurate count on the census of who resides in the United States. That's why.
Well, that would explain the term ward in the last paragraph, because we don't have wards in Middletown. But honestly, I'm not sure that I can support these specific activities. I can recognize and I can encourage, but I honestly can't be involved, promote, sign up, or help. And I don't know if the majority of the council, actually passes this, am I in dictating what I have to do? Are there penalties or,
There's no penalties, Counselor. Let me just say this, okay? I'm going to simplify this because it's really simple, even though you're trying to make it difficult. It's a request of the United States Census Bureau to every city and town across the United States to help them by putting this resolution in to get a true census of the reading of the population. That's all it is. They're not asking you to go out and count people, okay? They want us to support their effort into getting an accurate census. That's all it is.
Mr. President, this is your piece. I'm not even sure if you read it. I'm not trying to make it difficult, but this
You
is,
just made it difficult. You got a comment, make your comment, and let's move on. I'm looking at a clock. We're gonna be adjourning very shortly. And you know, you're wearing it thin here tonight on your comments.
well, Mr. President, it's on the docket. I'm
It's on the
questioning it.
docket.
I'm being
If you're
honest
not
with
in
you
favor of
about,
supporting it, don't support it.
okay, well, I think I don't think that
That's a
you read it.
request of the United States Census Bureau. Simply, that's it.
Well, I just
Don't
don't think it's
support it.
appropriate.
Okay, so taken. Any other conversation? Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass said resolution. Council Von Villas,
Aye.
Council Toronto.
Bob, I don't think it's really fair that you cut her off like that.
Okay, thank you.
There's no
So
conversation.
noted, so noted.
Didn't have any conversation, so I'm not voting for it.
Thank you, Councilor Toronto, and thank you for wasting time tonight talking about other things when I'm trying to get the docket done prior to 10:30. Negative from Councilor Toronto. Councilor Santos,
Yes.
Councilor Lombardi,
Aye.
Councilor Flynn,
No,
Vice President,
Aye.
myself in the affirmative. Resolution passes. Okay, continued. From March 16, 2020, regular meeting, and May 18th, resolution of the council requesting an amendment to RIGL, section 2461, authorizing the town of Middletown upon receiving a request of abandonment of highway or driftway from an abutting property owner to sell the highway or driftway to the abutting owner at a fair market value.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second,
Okay, we have a second. Conversation.
yes.
please.
Council Santos.
Go ahead. Who's
Council
on?
Santos.
And you got called, Counselor Santos.
Okay, thank you. This question is directed to Mr. Brown. Are there any on a list for a highway, driftway? Are there any on the list that this could be done?
What we were looking at or how this came about is we were looking at the property related to Beach Liquors.
Oh, okay. All right. You've answered my question. I know where you're going.
Yep.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Councilor Flynn.
I'm uncomfortable being rushed, and I don't
Okay.
think that you should make a general ordinance, a town ordinance based on one property without really exploring the possible scenarios. So, I would want explanation from the solicitor on this, maybe some examples as how it's been used in the past. I think that we should motion to continue this.
Solicitor. Peter, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, Mr. President, this is simply, and this did not come out of just that one situation. This is something that I have been talking to Mr. Brown about for probably over a year, based on my own experience, both in Middletown and in other communities and development projects. Right now, the whole point of this is to give the town flexibility in certain circumstances when there's a request to abandon a road or when the town abandons a portion of a roadway. Under the current law, that essentially that abandoned land gets split amongst the abutting property owners. We don't really get much say as to where it goes, and we don't receive any compensation for it. In certain circumstances, the one that was mentioned, being one of them, you would have the opportunity to determine where the abandoned land goes so that the configuration of the remaining roadway is as the town would want it. You also have the opportunity in the appropriate case to receive fair compensation for it. And this is something, this is legislation that probably 6 or 7 other communities have had passed in the past. So it is, it's nothing new. It is just designed to give the town some flexibility in the appropriate case if a request or situation arises.
I appreciate that broad overview, Mr. Regan, but it doesn't give me much detail or much specific circumstances that it has been applied. And if there are down signs, you say other communities do it. Well, they're not Middletown. I don't know what specific circumstances they might have had that they may not even apply to what we've got going on here in Middletown. I'm not comfortable with doing this at the 11th hour.
Okay. Anybody else like to make any comments?
For a while, so.
Yeah, this is the first time this has been on. Anybody else like to make any comments? Okay. I'm looking at the clock right now. It's 10:29. It's been seconded. Counselor Von Villas,
Aye.
Counselor Toronto,
Aye.
Counselor Santos,
Aye.
Counselor Lombardi,
Aye.
Counselor Flynn,
No.
Vice President,
Yes.
and I vote in the affirmative as well. Vice President, as this clock strikes 10:30,
Hey, perfect timing, Bob. Motion to adjourn.
Second. Amen.
we have a motion second to adjourn. Any conversation?
Yes.
Vice President.
Sean, fantastic job at the beaches tonight.
Thank you, Sean.
Yes.
Ditto.
Great
Ditto.
job.
Ditto.
It's a
Counselor
perfect,
Von Villas,
Aye.
Counselor Toronto,
I did want to thank all the people who sent in emails for Second Beach and the beach openings. There was a lot of residents who put a lot of good feedback in, so I do want to just do a shout out to them, and aye.
Counselor Santos,
Aye.
Counselor Lombardi,
Aye.
Counselor Flynn,
Yes, sir.
Vice President.
yes, sir, Bob.
Okay, and I too want to thank everybody, thank the residents for the emails they sent in. Sean, great job. We'll be monitoring it collectively as a team and a town, and hopefully our residents and our visitors can start to enjoy the beach. So I vote in the affirmative to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Bob. Good night, guys.
Does anyone want to stay on and maybe we'll have a pizza or something together?
Hey, we could. Virtual cocktails. Listen,